All right, this is a moderator. It's 1 minute before 9, so I'm going to start the recording. You'll hear a loud voice and then it will be quiet.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, good morning.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. It's 9
Good
a.m.
morning, moderator. This is your co-moderator doing a mic check.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Feel free to begin.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Veterinary Medical Board to order. And we will start, as always, with a roll call establishment of a quorum.
Dr. Nunez.
Here.
Ms. Bowler.
Here.
Dr. Bradbury. Dr. Bradbury. I see her. Dr. Bradbury, you may be muted.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Key is absent today. Ms. Laredo.
Here.
Dr. Noland.
Here.
Ms. Prado.
Here.
And Dr. Solicito will be joining us later. So she is absent right now. We have a quorum.
Very good. It's nice to see everyone. And first of all, I'd like to wish everyone a happy National Veterinary Technician Week. We very much appreciate our technicians, and we could not possibly do this without them. It's been a very stressful 2 years now, and without them, we wouldn't have made it. So to everyone in the state of California, happy Veterinary Technician Week, and also just a special welcome to our two newest board member representatives, our student liaisons, Amanda Ayers from UC Davis and Christina Younges from Western. You'll hear their reports later on in the meeting, and this is a result of our most recent strategic planning session to get more representation on our board. Okay, so the first item is discussion of items not on the agenda, public comment. So if we can open up the webcast to audience members, please.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the question and answer panel, also known as a Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment at this time, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment.
And I'm trying to open up my chat box here so I can see everyone. So I get the moderator, if you just want to recognize anyone that's chiming in.
So we don't have any requests for comments at this time. If you'd like to see where the Q&A box is located, just click on the participants icon. It looks like a person next to 3 lines at the bottom lower right, and that will allow you to see the Q&A panel whenever it's open. And at this time, I don't see any requests for comment. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Just
Yes,
one
please.
second. I'm sorry. I do see that Nancy Ehrlich has her hand up. She might be having some technical difficulties accessing the chat.
All right. Let me go ahead and unmute her. All right. So Nancy, you should be able to unmute yourself now. There you go. You're unmuted. Nancy, you're unmuted, and you have a 3-minute time limit. All right, so you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. You might want to try typing your comment into the comment field, if at all possible.
Moderator, I see the same thing with Trina Hazard. If we can call on her.
Yes. Yep. So Trina, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Okay, Trina, you're unmuted. So it looks like both of them, they're typically when a person's unmuted, the green in the microphone is flickering. It's not flickering, it's frozen for both of them. So it appears that there's something wrong with their audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes, this is Nancy.
No, this is Dr. Bradbury.
Oh,
I had
sorry.
just mentioned that Trina had a comment also, but it didn't sound like you guys were hearing me, so I just didn't know if it's WebEx that's the
Oh,
problem.
okay. Yes, we can hear you.
I think I saw Nancy's microphone flickering. It's going
Okay.
down now. Can you speak? Can we hear you now, Nancy? No, not yet. Do we want to review the minutes while we figure out this technical issue?
Sure.
Okay, so we will come back to agenda item 2 while they work backstage to try to resolve that issue. And in the meantime, we can move on to agenda item 3, review of the board minutes. That is included in your package.
Can we also promote Dr. Solicito? It looks like that she just joined us.
Yes, she's been promoted.
So are there any comments or corrections or revisions to the meeting minutes from July 22nd and 23rd? I see a hand up. Dr. Nolan?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time finding my little yellow hand. I have a tiny correction, which is on page 20, first line. And I would say the minutes are really very well done. I think they refer to Ms. Prado as Mr. Prado.
Somebody had that problem last time.
I'm sort of embarrassed to say I caught it the last time too.
Thank you for catching that. Any other corrections? Well, I was going to ask for public comments on corrections and so forth. If it's working, you want to try the public comments again?
Can we get a
Sure.
motion first to approve the minutes as,
I'll get to do
as
that.
amended?
Yes, of course. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Yeah, it's Kathy. I'll move to approve as amended.
And
I'll second that.
it's been moved in second. We'll open it up to the members of the public for corrections or revisions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. So the Q&A panel is available. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on the minutes, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. If you've been unmuted previously and we can't hear you, something you can try is just logging out and then logging back into the meeting. That might fix your audio. That being said, I'll go ahead and so I'm not sure if Nancy has a comment. I mean, her.
Yeah, I still see Nancy's hand up.
Except her mic is still frozen. So Nancy, I recommend logging out and logging back in.
I do see she's typed in the chat a statement. Can everyone see that in the chat?
It's possible she didn't send it to all panelists. I'm not seeing it. So for a comment to be seen by me as well as everyone else, it needs to be sent to all panelists.
It says from Nancy Ehrlich to everyone.
Okay. I don't see anything. Let me.
And it looks like there was also another request from Karen Atlas to make a public comment as well.
Right. I was going to mention that.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
I'm gonna shut it and then open it and see if that will refresh it. Let's do that.
So moderator, in the past, there was a separate Q&A box that would come up when we were, not just the chat, it was like a separate Q&A box, but I haven't seen that. Has anybody else actually seen the?
I can see it. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay.
yeah.
I just didn't.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
moderator, you're making a bad impression on our new student reps.
I'm so sorry. Sometimes
Yeah,
technology is not
sometimes
our
it happens.
friend.
Yes, I know.
So, yes. So I'm just trying to open up the Q&A panel. Okay, so we've got Tina that would like to make a comment. And she says she's had to log off and log back on.
This is Tara, legal counsel to the board. I just want to be really clear that right now public comment is about agenda item 3, board meeting minutes as amended. We will return to agenda item 2 separately. We just need to keep these public comment items separate for purposes of the meeting minutes. Thank you.
So, do we have any raised hands for the minutes right now?
So it looks like it's just Tina and she wants to refer back to the public comment
Okay.
agenda
And
item.
then I'm going to assume that there's no additional public comments for the meeting minutes.
Correct.
And close it, refresh it while we take a vote.
Okay.
And it's been motioned and seconded. And we can call for the vote to approve the minutes from our last meeting, please.
Ms. Bowler,
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Ms. Key is absent. Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Ms. Prado,
Yes.
Dr. Solocito,
Yes.
Dr. Noland,
Yes.
Dr. Nunez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mark, you're muted, Mark.
Now I'm muted. Now, moving back to agenda item number 2, public comments on items not on the agenda. I can see some hands raised. Let's see if we can hear them.
So Trina, I've given you permission to unmute yourself, so you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go, you're unmuted. And can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful. You have 3 minutes.
Celebration. All right. Hi, my name is Trina Hazza, and I'm here to ask the board to consider creating a new agenda item for the next meeting, specifically for California veterinarians to be permitted to recommend hemp-derived cannabis products. I am a veterinary oncologist and co-founder and president of the Veterinary Cannabis Society, which is the first and only US-based nonprofit dedicated to the safe and effective use of medical cannabis for animals. The VCS has several key veterinarians from across the country who have collaborated to write numerous position statements on both the state and federal level to help protect veterinary professionals and pets as well. We also are lucky enough to hold a seat on the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, which provides us a broad-reaching platform to advance our advocacy efforts. Governor Newsom recently signed AB 45 into law, which allows for the inclusion of hemp and cannabinoids in food, beverages, dietary supplements, cosmetics, and even pet food. As a result, there are going to be many hemp-derived CBD products that will enter the market legally in California. And more than ever, consumers will need their veterinarians to actually recommend dosing and specific products. Recently, Nevada passed AB 101 and became the first state in the United States to authorize veterinarians to recommend and administer CBD. California veterinarians and consumers will absolutely benefit from similar direction. On behalf of the Veterinary Cannabis Society, I respectfully request you add this item to the next meeting agenda. Thank you.
All right, and we have a request for comment from Anita Hudson. So Anita, I have given you permission to unmute yourself. You'll have 3 minutes. All right, you're unmuted.
I was just trying to assist Nancy a bit here in her difficulty. So her text, she did type it into the chat if you guys are able to see it there. But if not, I definitely wanted to help her out with that. And what she was saying was that we're hearing a great demand for RVTs to assist owners with treatments prescribed by their veterinarian, particularly now with the pandemic. And there are RVTs that want to provide that service, which the question arises, can RVTs perform prescribed treatments while being paid without being directly supervised by that prescribing veterinarian? She notes that Section 4827 exempts anyone assisting an owner for no fee, which implies that if they were paid, they would not be exempt from that Practice Act. But it's not clear on whether paying an RVT to perform these prescribed treatments means that they must be supervised. We would greatly appreciate an opinion on this and if any change in statute or regulation is required.
All right, thank you. And then we have a request for comment from Jeff Pollard. Jeff, I'll give you permission to unmute yourself in just a moment. I'm just finding you in my list. All right, Jeff, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, you're unmuted.
I've followed this cannabis topic closely now since 2019, when, as MDC chair, we wrote the guidelines. You'll recall these were based on legislation AB 2215 that permits California veterinarians to discuss cannabis products. This was followed by 2 unsuccessful bills, SB 627 and AB 384, that would have permitted veterinarians to recommend. So while California was the first state in the US to recognize cannabis in veterinary medicine, Nevada, with AB 101, currently has the most progressive law regarding these hemp-derived products. Dr. Hazza also referenced AB 45, which presents a unique opportunity for consumers and veterinarians to utilize hemp-derived cannabis products in a safer and more effective manner. AB 45 has testing and labeling and licensing requirements for these products. So I'd like to second her request to establish an agenda item so stakeholders can discuss the topic at a future meeting. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Was Karen Atlas still on the line? Does she have any comments to make?
Karen is on the line, and I can unmute her or give her permission to unmute herself. So Karen, you've been given permission to unmute yourself if you'd like to make a comment.
The
All right,
other
Karen,
thing
you're unmuted.
if Karen can't speak,
Yes.
I know that. There you are.
I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for taking my comment. My name is Karen Atlas, and I'm the president of the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition. And we are a coalition who represents DVMs, PTs, RVTs, and consumers who are like-minded in our approach to increase safe access to properly trained and licensed physical therapists. I just wanted to touch on the Access to Care task force. We did have the opportunity to speak at public comment at your Access to Care task force, and I thank you for forming that task force. My hope is that the facts can soon be realized that the issue that relates to access to care for animal rehabilitation is truly in crisis in California. And we've been trying to alert and sound the alarm to the Veterinary Medical Board to this crisis for many years, and it's only gotten worse, of course, after COVID-19. So things are even more dire. The other states have.
Aaron, can I interrupt you for a second? We do have access to care on the agenda, and also physical therapy is on the agenda as well too.
Gotcha. I will wait until that time then for my public comment.
Yeah. But if you have anything that's not on the agenda.
I was just going to touch on access to care on that one, and I missed that was on the agenda. So sorry, my
There's
mistake.
going to be a report from that task force. So I appreciate you being here. If we can wait for that agenda item. All right.
You got it. You got it. No problem. Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator, and we have a Kristen Hagler wanting to comment on the physical rehab section. Is that something in the agenda as well, or is that?
Yeah, animal rehabilitation is going to be under pending regulations. It's
So
an item there.
All right, so Kristen can make her comment at that time.
Thank you.
All right, so then that is the end of comments for agenda item 2. Mr. President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 4, report and update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Well,
Members, we're actually going to push this off until 1:30.
Okay, Jessica's very quiet right now. I can barely hear her, but I don't think our the DCA representative is here right now, and that agenda item is going to be moved, I think, to around 1:30. And now agenda item number 5, review and discussion and possible action on the MDC report. One of our fabulous veterinary technicians, Christy Pawlowski, and her cat.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for that, and I needed to move my cat very quickly. I apologize. So, good morning. Yes, and thank you. Happy Veterinary Technicians Week. So, okay, let's get started. So, first off, recommendations regarding the veterinary premises inspection checklist and inspection process improvements. During the October 2020 strategic planning discussion, the board discussed the difficulty in meeting the annual 20% veterinary premises inspection mandate, and historically never been able to meet this mandate. So the board proposed reevaluating the inspections checklist and potentially decreasing the number of items being inspected to reduce the amount of time it takes, and board inspectors to complete these inspections, and for board staff to review the reports. From this, the Mdc Subcommittee was formed, including Dr. Warner and Jennifer Laredo. And then with Dr. Warner's departure from the MDC, we now have Dr. Diane Sequoia. So the subcommittee has expressed concerns regarding the 20% inspection mandate. However, without more conclusive data, the MDC decided to gather more information before making further decisions. In September, the subcommittee met with the board's lead inspector and the inspections enforcement manager with the purpose to monitor progress of the merge of the inspection enforcement units and monthly inspection statistics, and monitor monthly inspection statistics, and to evaluate the inspections checklist and discuss recommendations to the MDC at our meeting yesterday. The merger of the units is proceeding smoothly. The inspection mobile app is estimated to roll out during the first quarter of 2022, with no exact costs yet, since they will be shared with other DCA boards. The subcommittee anticipates significant time savings in completing veterinary premises inspection checklists, automatically embedding site photos into the report and staff review. There was discussion about decreasing the number of items on the inspection checklist. However, the subcommittee's final proposal believes if the checklist reduces the number of items on the checklist or limits the number of items to be inspected for routine inspections, licensees will believe they are in full compliance with all premises requirements, when in fact they may not be, and this could lead to decreased consumer protection. So the MDC made a couple of motions, which will be presented to your board at your next meeting. Any questions on the inspections subcommittee?
I did read that report, Christy. Thank you very much. And I noted that they mentioned in the report that they talked to inspectors and members of the public. The subcommittee did. I guess I need a little clarification of who they talked to when they developed their opinion that the checklist should be complete and thorough.
So Christy, if you don't mind, I can take that because I'm on
Yes.
the subcommittee.
I figured you would.
We did not speak to members of the public. I'm not sure if that was a typo. We did speak to Dr. Howard, and there was some feedback from some of the inspectors. We had also met with other boards within the DCA, and there was some research done on other states. But the main issues were that we did not want to lose focus of the educational process of that inspection program because the checklist is minimum standards. It's not best practices. So there was the opinion that reducing that list would put the consumers at risk. So that's where that came from.
Great, thank you. I just read the sentence that says input from boards, inspectors, staff, and the public. Well, you know, so I wondered if you had actually done some kind of survey of the public. That's why it's in the report.
Not that I know of, and I can't believe I missed that. You're the expert on the minutes, so I wouldn't imagine I missed that.
And I'm going to probably go on record to say that I think 20% is high for any board, but I also think that I don't agree with the philosophy that a thorough and complete inspection, if you don't do a thorough and complete inspection, that they will believe that they're in compliance. You can just tell them this is a spot check. Very easy to do, and does not then insinuate that it is a thorough and complete inspection. And I really think that if you have thorough and complete inspections with let's say 1 out of every 10 hospitals versus spot checks for 1 out of every 5, as the 20% mandate said, you're reaching twice as many hospitals with the most important and urgent issues that they have. And that's what I would recommend the spot check be. We know what the most important and urgent problems are in hospital compliance. And so reaching twice as many hospitals with those urgent matters, I think provides more public protection than reaching 1 out of 10 hospitals with a very thorough and complete checklist. So that's my opinion, but I'll be quiet now.
No, we love your opinion, Dr. Noland, and it was actually brought up that we wanted to make sure everybody was heard, but we did also ask the MDC for permission to keep the subcommittee going, to keep monitoring and keep gathering information. And there was also a suggestion about maybe having some quarterly or biannual online CE courses that would cover that topic to make sure that we are focusing on that.
And I'm encouraged that there's going to be some changes with the mobile app coming online and whatnot, so we can also monitor that to see if that's helping us fulfill our mandate.
I think that the fear is that there will be any excuse to say, well, I've been inspected, so I'm okay. And it's that any excuse, even if it's a spot check or a full inspection. I think that's the fear, is that, well, I've been inspected, so I'm okay. And it's just using whatever they can. We don't want to give them any type of false promise that they've been inspected and that they're okay. Well, they haven't had a full inspection, and so we don't want that.
I certainly agree that any complaint-driven inspections need to be thorough and complete. But if we're talking about the inspections being educational, and we keep saying this, we want it, then that doesn't make sense to me, because you could very clearly say, this is a partial inspection to help you. This is an educational focus. This is not a complete inspection. So do not count on that. But here's something that may help you reach compliance in the 5 or 10 hot topics that we have trouble with. So I guess I disagree. I think you can word it and make it very clear.
Well, I think that's where, and I'll be talking about it in the next section too. But this is where our educational tools will be coming into play. And I think that's going to make a huge difference in educating the profession and getting compliant. So I think that's going to make a huge difference.
Can I make a comment here? Yeah, Dr. Nolan, we actually talked about the discussion from the last board meeting, where you brought that up, and I wanted to make sure that they had looked at it being just a spot check, not actually reducing the full list. But I think the thing that stood out to me was that it doesn't sound like reducing the checklist for the routine inspections and making it a spot check would really reduce the time and increase the number of inspections that much, because really I think the time is them going out, like actually physically getting to the place. I don't think that the amount of time for each inspection is the problem once they're there. And so I think that also played into the recommendation to leave things the way it is that by reducing that, it probably won't increase the number of inspections because it doesn't reduce much of the workload, but it may reduce compliance and the benefits of inspection, like the pros and cons as you weigh them. The pros to reducing that and doing a spot check weren't very many, because it just didn't really seem to make that big of a difference, I think, in the opinions of the inspectors. At least that was my take on things, and you guys can clarify that if you want.
Yeah.
Kathy?
This is Kathy. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I just wanted to also say, and Jamie, I understand where you're coming from on the two-step inspection thing and the need to do more rather than less. One thing before, and I think two things, the inspection, the mobile app, I hope will improve things, certainly the throughput of the data that's derived from an inspection. But I would personally, if we were ever going to really seriously consider the kind of the express inspection versus the full inspection or whatever, I'd love to hear personally, I know the subcommittee did and the MDC did, but I'd love to hear from Dr. Howard and the team, because I know I've gone on a couple of inspections with him and he has been doing it for many years. And I bet he probably has a lot of nuanced discussion that would help us about what one item in an inspection may lead to another item, things like that. So I would just suggest that if we ever really do go back and consider that two-step process, we probably want to have him come and talk to us so we can understand really what they do find. But I watched the MDC meeting yesterday and listened to all the back and forth, and the committee really did do a good job. And for public protection, I am still a huge proponent of getting as many inspections done as possible. And I know we can't complete the 20%. It's a laudable goal. I wish we could. But anyway, it seems like we're moving the ball forward a little bit. We just need to continue pushing for this mobile app and talking to the inspectors. So that's just what I had to say. And I thank the subcommittee, Jennifer, and I can't remember who else was on the subcommittee, but you guys did a good job in terms of investigating.
Dr. Warner, Dr. Warner started, and Dr. Sequoia is now on it.
That's right, Dr. Sequoia. I apologize. Anyway, thank you.
Christy, do you think it would be possible to maybe give a demonstration of the mobile app to the board at the next meeting to show us kind of what it looks like? I think it might be informative.
I will pass that information on to your next chair.
Is it legal?
So it's still in development. It hasn't been developed yet. So it's the OIS team for DCA is hoping to start it at the end of this year, and so we can launch it next year. So it's not available for a demo.
Okay. Since the last meeting, I think Elon Musk came out with some new robots that need things to do. So maybe that could be a possibility for hospital inspections. Maybe, just a thought.
I'll definitely make note of that. Thanks.
Please continue, Christy.
Always something. So, okay. Update from the Complaint Process Audit Subcommittee. So I personally find this to be one of the most helpful subcommittees that the MDC has and will continue, thankfully. Dr. Lazarsheff reported on the medical board expert witness training he attended, and he found this to be extremely valuable. Continuous work will be done to improve the complaint process, improve cycle time, and move through cases. There's never an easy answer. The MDC is reminded that the older cases can be the more serious, requiring more time, more review, and usually the more important in terms of consumer protection. Although we may want to rush through the newer cases to resolve them quickly and get the numbers down, our goal and our mission reminds us to take the necessary actions to do what is right for consumers and pets. This requires patience. The board staff and experts are creating a resource library to assist the experts with finding and citing references in their reports. The board staff is reaching out to other similar sized boards to see how those boards are processing complaints. And this corresponds with the board's 2020 and 2024 strategic plan goal. Analysts have been assigned to triage cases. This triage will assist in determining a better evaluation of timelines, goals, and strategies for handling each case. And as a reminder, the MDC is developing education materials for the board's website, which may help in educating consumers and professionals. And these materials help with the role of the board, the complaint process, and overall communication. Any questions there?
I don't see any hands in the chat. Oh, Kathy?
Thank you. This is possibly for Jessica, really. When Karen Denver finalizes the veterinary specific expert training, I know folks attended the medical board training. Is it possible for board members like us to attend that training? It's probably going to be virtual, I assume, but just wondering.
Yes.
I think I did
Yes.
in the past, and I'd really like to see the new training.
Yes, you are.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Now, I would like to end on my final chair remarks that I read to the board or to the committee yesterday. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each member of our MDC and the Veterinary Medical Board for their personal time and commitment. The MDC is devoted to assist and advise the Veterinary Medical Board through difficult and often controversial laws and policies. It has been our duty to research, spend time gathering information, and presenting our findings. We all interviewed with the Veterinary Medical Board, and one of the questions asked of us was, how will you handle defending or presenting a position that is not popular with your profession or colleagues? I am before you today as a complete representation that I have defended and presented positions that may not have been my personal opinions, but were findings of long hours, dedication, and tireless efforts of our committee. We have all chosen to work within the boundaries of our Veterinary Medicine Practice Act to achieve what is best to protect consumers and animals, thereby protecting the veterinary profession. We fight to safeguard what is most valuable to all those working on the MDC and the VMB, animals and those who serve them. I encourage anyone participating, whether it be in the audience or through the committee or the board, to take to take a chance to get to know one another. We are all on a similar course. The path we choose may be different. The expected outcome may have variations, and some paths have a few more curves than others. However, if we continue discussions, gather more information, have those difficult conversations, we continue our mission to protect consumers and animals through the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act. Again, thank you for the many years of entertainment, continued learning and growth, and I look forward to the future. So I leave you with Dr. Dick Sullivan as chair and Leah as vice chair.
All right. Thank you, Christy. This is kind of both of our last meetings. And so we get a chance to do a little soapbox presentation. And you have been amazing on the committee. And I've seen your leadership really grow, and I'm proud of you. I think you did a great job.
I think I think I've been attending MDC meetings before I even became a member for like 7 years or 8 years. So it's been a really long time. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my days, you know.
Well, something tells me we haven't seen the last of you. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments from the board for Christy and the MDC report? Kathy?
I just really wanted to reiterate what Mark just said. Christy, thank you so much. I know for a fact that you're involved in so many other things. You're a gourmet cook. You know, you and Ken have a big practice. You're a dedicated RVT, and the fact that you have spent so much time on very complex issues with a very cheerful, let's move the ball forward attitude has been a huge service to the board. So I just want to personally thank you. And I don't know where you find all the time and hours in the day to do everything, but we're going to miss you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you very much.
Dr.
Sorry,
Nolan?
I can't find the hand raise feature. Can I say something too? Also, where is the hand raise feature? I can't find that.
This is the moderator. If you mouse over to the right of your name, if you had the participants panel open, so you click on the person next to 3 lines at the bottom lower right, then if you mouse to the right of your name, you have the hand raise feature.
It's not there, but I'm already unmuted. Christy, thank you.
Little hand,
I actually mention you in my RVT report later, but I just want to point out to everybody that it has been an RVT who's been leading the MDC for the past few years. She has been a very strong member of the committee. We could not have continued that committee without Christy's leadership. So we are all appreciative. Thank you for being a representation of the veterinary technician community.
Thank you, Jennifer. You and I have been there together, so it's been nice serving with you, and I appreciate it. So thank you, Jennifer. And I said this yesterday, and I cannot stress this enough. I cannot do what I do each and every day without the people that I have beside me, and they are the ones that help me do what I do, whether it be at my hospital, whether it be on the MDC, wherever I am. It's because the people that I am with, they are the ones that help me do the things that I do. I do not do this alone. So.
And I wanted to jump in and say thank you personally as well. I think that you've done a fantastic job, and I know that it's been a difficult time to do anything, it seems like. So the effort and just the professionalism you have exhibited has been really tremendous. So thank you, Christy.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
I tried to raise my hand too, but it disappeared. I don't know what happened. So, oh, it looks like my internet is not working.
We can hear you.
Okay, I said this yesterday, Christy. I just wanted to thank you again in this forum, and you've done amazing work, and I know it hasn't always been easy, and
You lost her.
And you've.
Thank you, Dr. Bradbury. I know I heard you yesterday, and I appreciate it.
She said she did a great
So
job.
members, I just want to clarify that you are able to speak about the motions that the MD. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, you can speak about the motions that were made during the inspection subcommittee because it's properly agendized. I think the last meeting, the board had asked
to do that.
Yeah, because at the last meeting, I know Ms. Laredo had requested to get more direction from the board, and so it wasn't properly agendized, so we did this time. So the request from the inspection subcommittee, they were recommending that they keep the inspections checklist the same right now and continue on with that path. And also, though, they are recommending to the board that it directs the inspection subcommittee to monitor the progress of the inspection and enforcement unit merger, inspection process improvements, and mobile app implementation for 12 months, and then bring data-driven recommendations back to the board regarding the 20% mandate. So I just wanted to make sure that the inspection subcommittee gets the direction that they're requesting for this meeting.
I can, yeah, I was gonna say, I can read those exactly if you would like.
And do you want a motion? Is that, Jessica?
We don't need a motion because that was a recommendation from the subcommittee, but they're looking for further direction from the board to the subcommittee, and so they're requesting that direction on page 4 of the memo.
Okay,
I
praising your name,
apologize.
Christy.
I'm so used
If
to
you could,
I am so used to
if you
you guys
could,
not being able to take action on any of this that I just like not gonna
could you
I'm
present?
following rules.
Could you present your recommendations one more time for us,
Yes.
and then we will.
The MDC would like the board, they recommended to the board that no changes be made to reduce or otherwise limit the number of items listed on the inspection checklist. That's the first thing. The second one, the subcommittee recommended or requests that we recommend to the board that it direct the inspection subcommittee to monitor the progress of the inspection and enforcement units merger, inspection process improvements, and mobile app implementation for 12 months and bring data-driven recommendations back to the board regarding the 20% inspection mandate.
Okay, and since I think there might be a difference of opinion, we'll take each one separately. The first recommendation for the subcommittee for us to approve a motion to recommend to the board that no changes be made to reduce or otherwise limit the number of items listed on the inspection checklist. Jessica said we don't need a motion for that, but if there's no
I apologize.
objections.
I think because this subcommittee is requesting, we should go ahead and do motion.
Okay, so do I have a motion for any board member? And
Mark?
Kathy?
Yeah, actually, I would like to see if, I don't know if this is in order, but I would like to make the motion that we recommend that right now, no changes be made to reduce at this, I mean, so that, you know, after some more data and things like that, but I don't know if that helps.
That's, it does help clarify it a bit. It's not the end of the discussion, but for now.
Right, that
Yeah,
right now, no changes be made to reduce or otherwise limit the number of items on the inspection checklist.
I'm good with that. So
I second the motion.
Who's that?
That's Dr. Solosito. I would like to second Kathy's
Okay.
motion.
All right. And then the motion and seconded. Are there any other comments from the board members? Jessica, your hand is still up. Is it up for this? It's down.
Sorry.
Any from the public on this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on agenda item 5, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit your response to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference and we'll give you a moment. All right, we have Bonnie Lutz who would like to make a comment. So Bonnie, I will give you permission to unmute yourself, and please remember you'll have 3 minutes. All right, Bonnie, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, you're unmuted.
Can I be heard right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I just want to congratulate Christy. I think she did a great job, and she is a friend of mine, and I think she did a wonderful job with the MDC. Secondly, I just want to recommend that you really consider not shortening the number of items that are looked at during the inspections. I've defended numerous veterinarians with inspection issues, and I've also personally provided documentation of the compliance after an inspection. And over again, my clients will tell me, I was inspected, the inspector was really nice, he said all these things were minor, it's no big deal, And then it turns out that when I look at the inspection report, it is a big deal. So, I mean, I just would encourage you to consider that even if you make it clear that it's just a partial inspection, I don't think the veterinarians are going to hear that. They're going to think that because there was an inspector there, even if they didn't say inspect the drug logs, that their drug logs were fine. So, I mean, I really encourage you to consider doing the full inspection every time. And again, I agree with Dr. Bradbury. I don't know that doing a shortened inspection is necessarily going to free up that much additional time so that more inspections can be done. So I just want to encourage you to kind of look at it from that perspective, because I'm really concerned that a veterinarian who's inspected does think, because I have them tell me all the time, I was inspected 3 years ago and he was a really nice guy and he said everything was great, and everything isn't great. So I just want to, make that comment. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands. And so we can close public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. It is closed.
It's been motioned and seconded. We've heard from members of the public. Any further comments from the board? If not, we can call for the vote.
Ms. Bullard?
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes for me.
Dr. Noland?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the second request is for a motion to recommend to the board that it direct the inspection subcommittee to monitor the progress of the inspection and enforcement units merger, inspection process improvements, and mobile app implementation for 12 months, and bring data-driven recommendations back to the board regarding the 20% inspection mandate. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it. It's Kathy.
And is there a second?
I'll second it, Dr. Solocito.
It's been motioned and seconded. And any further comments from the board before we open it up to the public? Hearing none. Moderator, please open up to the public for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I'm opening up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I'm seeing no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
It has been motioned and seconded. We've heard from members of the public. Are there any further comments from the board? Hearing none, we can call for a vote.
Ms. Bullard?
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Key? I'm sorry, she's absent. Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Dr. Noland?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now.
All right. Shall we continue to praise your name, or do you have any other items for your report?
We're good. I'm good. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you. You did great. You did a great job.
Have a good one.
Thanks. The next item is agenda item 6, interview and discussion and possible appointment to fill the vacancy on the MDC RVT member position. Do we need a break? Is everyone doing good? Should we plow on, go forth. Speak now. All right.
Break, please. Short break.
Okay, let's take 10 minutes, please. So I don't see everyone's video on yet. So I assume that we're coming back still.
I don't know if you can see my video, but this
I
is
can
Dr.
see-
Bedbury.
I see you. I see Jennifer Laredo. I see Kathy. Jamie, are you back? Dr. Nolan?
Yes, I'm here.
How many horses did you rescue in that little break? The next item on the agenda is interviewing for our open position on the MDC board. We have we received several nominations and thank our applications and thank you to everyone who has applied. We're honored by your application, but we've narrowed it down to 4 candidates in your board packages. You received their application letter and information, their resumes and letters of recommendations. And you should have also received the questions that we're going to be asking and the order that we'll be asking the questions in. After the interviews, we will ask for the board, we'll ask for nominations of any of the candidates to fill the position. And then we will, if it's seconded, we'll call for a vote. If that person, the motion carries, that person will be in the position. If the motion does not carry, then we will open up for further nominations. Hopefully that is clear. And the first application is from Catherine Buff. Are we in attendance, and can we open up the mic, please?
Mark, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
I do have the questions to ask, but you mentioned we have an order. Are we assigned a certain number? I don't have that information.
It was in the body of that email. The order is the same order that's on our the beginning of our board package. So it's going to be Mark Nunez, Kathy Bowler, Christina Bradbury, Jennifer Laredo, Jamie Nolan, Dan Prado, and Dr. Solicito. I always refer to her as Dr. Solicito. I never mention her first name. It just doesn't feel right.
Can I ask a clarifying question too? There
Yes.
are 8 questions and 7 of us. So are you getting 1 and 8, or are we going to go out of order?
We'll go back to the top when we reach the bottom.
Okay.
And just cycle that way. And then for the next candidate, Kathy gets question 1. See how that works? Okay. So is Catherine Buff present?
This is moderator. Catherine Buff is promoted to a panelist. She has the ability to unmute herself, but she's still muted.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, I was having a little bit of a technical difficulty.
There you are. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So I will start off with the questions. Why are you interested in this position?
I'm interested in this position, a lot to do with my experience. I have worked in the public sector for the majority of my career, and I really feel like serving on the MDC would be a really good way for me to give back to the community that has served me so well over my career. And I just look at that as a really great opportunity and something that I would really feel privileged to do.
Kathy?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Second question is, are you, I know you generally are because you've been involved in the profession for so many years at a higher level. Are you familiar with the functions of licensing board and our MDC committee and the laws governing veterinary medicine in California? And then the other question along with this is, and do you have sufficient time to commit to the MDC for collaboration subcommittee meetings, kind of the research? You have a sense of what they do already, but those are my questions for you.
Okay, I'll start with the first half of the question. I'm definitely familiar with the laws governing the board and the MDC. Definitely we are grounded and must follow the regulations of the California Veterinary Medical Act. And also in many cases, the DEA regulations that are set forth. The core functions that we have are defining the scope of practice, setting the standards within the industry, both for practice as a whole, and also for the scope of admitting people into, being DVMs and RVTs. We have to specify the guidelines for the ever-changing veterinary field that goes from, new drugs being introduced to new treatments for animals, all along to all of the challenges that we have with, the most common things that are dealt with: cancer, diabetes. Heartworm is definitely something that's coming up. It's becoming more prevalent across the country, and ways to prevent it and treat it are also ever changing. And so those are all types of things that we have to look at and regulate. And that's just kind of on the small example of the scope. We have to make sure that safety of the animals is definitely first in all of the decisions that we make, and as well as our consumers. However, I do think it's important that we look at everybody who's involved in the decisions we're making and how it would affect them. Ultimately, the MDC would review and make recommendations to the board, which is really important in the process for the board to have transparency and to have those double checks and making sure that those regulations are being followed. As far as my time and commitment, definitely I have that, or I wouldn't even be interviewing here with you guys today. I definitely have that within the scope of my full-time job. I have full support of being on the MDC, and my personal dedication would allow me to prioritize that appropriately.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Ms. Buff. It's Dr. Bradbury. I've turned my picture off in hopes that I will stay connected while speaking. How do you feel your education, background, and experience have prepared you for membership on the MDC? And what assets do you think you can bring to the MDC that would complement the current membership of the committee?
Well, as I stated just a bit ago, I've been in the public sector for pretty much the majority of my career since 1997. But I also have a fair amount of experience. I worked in emergency medicine. I've also worked in private practice, so that gives me a really good idea of what the differences are and between public medicine and private medicine. Understanding that the needs of the consumers are definitely different in both of those scopes. I also have served on 2 other boards of supervisors outside of the veterinary medicine, but it's also that gives me the experience in being able to have these large discussions, being able to know that we have to listen to everybody's opinion, everybody's basically listen to everybody's voice, find where our common ground is, and then go back to, in this case, the Veterinary Practice Act to find where our common ground would meet the regulations, and then being able to come together to make a a good solid recommendation to the board.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my question, it's kind of a long one. Recommendations made by the MDC are based on its consumer protection mandate and are not always popular with the general profession. How do you think that you would be able to handle making decisions based on the needs of consumers and their pets that may be unpopular with your colleagues?
Well, I believe that as a member of the MDC, as on any style of a board of supervisors or committee, that you have to always keep in line what your priorities are. And in this case, the priorities would be animal safety and our consumers, and always taking into consideration our colleagues. I think that that's also important in being able to make the best decisions. However, as a member of the public sector for over 20 years, I'm extremely familiar with unpopular decisions having to be made and understanding that there can be scrutiny that goes along with that. So I feel that as long as I'm confident that animal safety and that the consumers are being made a priority and that we are making the best and most fair decision, that there's always going to be people who oppose those decisions, and there's always going to be people who are for the decisions that we make, and that's just kind of part of the deal of being an MDC member. And I'm okay with that as long as I'm confident that all of those things have been addressed in that decision-making process.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I have the next question. And it would be, as an RVT, we assume you are familiar with current trends in veterinary medicine, but which issues have affected you directly?
I am definitely aware of the common trends in veterinary medicine right now. I would say that some of the most hot topics are basically cannabis in veterinary medicine, probably vaccination protocols, telemedicine and access to care are probably the top things that we're all hearing about. I would say that what I've been most recently affected by, as many of us have, is the telemedicine and access to care. Working at a municipal shelter during COVID, we have received a lot of those phone calls and emails and inquiries about not being able to get into their veterinarian, or people who have taken on more animals than they had before COVID, and now they're trying to seek out care and get but their animals never seen a veterinarian before, which was even harder for them to get into. So telemedicine is something that definitely has come up. Even for us with our own patients, we continued doing surgery on our in-house shelter animals that were being adopted. So definitely we had to figure out a way to be able to see these animals that were coming back for incision checks, or coughs, or whatever it is that they needed to see within the 14 days of adoption. And so we've definitely had to navigate our way around being able to use telemedicine to be able to help these people, and drive through pickup services, and all different things. So I've definitely been directly affected by that.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thank you for being here. I believe it's my question now. Can you think of any positions that you hold or activities you are currently involved in that may present a conflict for you to serve as a member of the MDC and thus a representative of the VMB?
No, as I stated earlier, I'm definitely all in. I can definitely set my priorities and goals, and be able to serve fully to the MDC, as I should be if I'm even here taking on this interview. And again, I do have the support of my work to be able to serve in this function.
Thank you.
Okay, I think question 6 was missed, so let me ask that question. Do you have any particular issues that you would like to see the MDC to address at this time?
Yes, definitely. One of the things that I'm thinking of is actually already on the agenda today, and that is definitely access to care. You know, as I mentioned in the last question, it's become definitely an issue for the consumers, probably not just in California, but for having that access to care with the veterinarian shortage, with you know, people not having appointments, and with the telemedicine seeming to be causing a little bit of a problem with people being able to see as many patients. So that's definitely something I would like to see addressed. And also the cannabis and veterinary medicine. I think that's really important, mainly because it's becoming such a hot topic in human medicine. And I think that the more access there is to cannabis in the human factor, and the more it becomes regular, then the more we're going to see this as a common thing in households, and that can affect the safety of pets if people start trying to self-treat their animals and compare them to humans. And so I think that getting that regulated, getting you know, the different things in place that need to be done in order to help cannabis become a forefront in animal medicine is going to make it a lot safer for those animals that need that as part of their treatment.
Good catch, Dr. Solicito. You just caught that out of order question. I have the last question. Is there anything else you would like to share with the board?
Yeah, I would just like to tell you just a little bit about myself, if that's all right. I've been in veterinary medicine since 1997. I was going to say 77. Since 1997. I became a licensed RVT in 2000. I have dedicated my majority of my career to the public sector. I've served in 2 municipal shelters and also in a private nonprofit organization that held city contracts. So I'm very familiar with having to understand laws and regulations, and being able to apply those while still serving the constituents of those areas at the very best and providing them with the services that they need or the help that they need. I've really been blessed in being able to have leadership roles throughout my career, and also throughout my church. I've always been able to guide and mentor people. Probably the most fun thing in that guiding and mentorship that I've been able to do is that we have a pretty rigorous internship program at the shelter I work at now. We work with both RVT students and DVM students. So mentoring them and helping them to learn about public medicine and shelter medicine just really excites me. And I love being able to help bring people that knowledge early on in their career, and the understanding of the differences between public medicine and private medicine, and knowing that there's a lot more to public medicine than just spaying and neutering animals. As I mentioned before, I have served on 2 other boards of supervisors, so I do have that experience behind me in being able to move through those large conversations. On those boards, I served as a communication coordinator on one, and on the other, I served as a treasurer. So 2 very different roles. So both were fun. I did like communication better than treasurer. I'll be honest with you about that. But definitely, I just am really excited and would really love the opportunity to be able to give back to my profession and to the people of California. And I would be really, I can't think of the word, but I'd just be really happy to be able to serve on the MDC and help you guys in that capacity. It would be an honor.
How many of those shelter animals have come home as pets for you now?
I have 2 shelter dogs and 2 shelter cat. Well, one cat is kind of a rescue. She went to the shelter, but I took her back. And then the other one I brought home from the shelter, and we've had her for just a year.
Very
So
nice.
I've had other ones that have gone to doggy heaven already. So
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you.
I think the next on the list is Larissa Dimalanta.
Hi, that's me. Let me see if you can see me on the video. Yes, okay. I'm gonna get off my phone because I didn't know which one would work.
And we'll be starting with question 1 with Kathy Bowler.
Do you guys hear feedback? Or double? Okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah, just
Thank
let
you.
us know
Okay, I think we're okay.
Okay, just let us, yeah, I just want to make sure you were all set.
Thank you.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And again, thank you for your application. We had quite a few terrific applications. The MDC is critical to the workings of our board. So we're really, excited for the new individuals that will be serving. My first question is, why are you interested in this position?
That's a great question. And I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for inviting me to interview. This has been on my mind for weeks. I've been so excited. And so the fact that we're doing this now is a great honor to me. So thank you. The multidisciplinary committee of the whole entity of the DCA is a entity that I only recently became aware of. I've been on the CBMA board as an RVT representative in California for a number of years, since 1999. I served multiple terms as the research or industry RVT, education RVT, and now I'm the District 9 RVT representative. And I've always gone to the meetings where the HOD, the House of Delegates, I've also served as an alternate and a delegate for several terms as well. And when I have been in my growth as an RVT in this, I've been an RVT since 1997 as well. And so in this journey of over 2 decades, I definitely have seen a lot of changes. And with that, my awareness when I was going to all of these meetings was that there actually is a lot of discussion, there actually is a lot of research and consensus that goes on before we advocate bills that will go on through the process of legislature. And the more I've learned about the multidisciplinary committee, the more I think, my goodness, I would be a really good person to have on the board because I have been in multifaceted industries as an RVT since 1997 in research, in academia, and private practice. So biomedical research comes very easily to me. I'm very regulatory minded because I have been the compliance analyst for big pharmaceutical companies and little biotech companies when we were doing INDs, so investigational new drug applications, as well as NDAs, the new drug applications for the FDA and USDA. And, my involvement with IACUC and ALAC regulations is just something that comes so natural to me, only because I was fortunate to have GLP, good laboratory practices, drilled into me early as an RVT here in the Bay Area. So the reason why I would like to serve is because I feel like I have had the firsthand experience in many areas that would give the MDC and subsequently the VMB a perspective where I personally know and am still involved in these industries and could give you a sense of what RVTs are expected to do, what their conduct is, what regulations surround them in these different areas, and how I can contribute to the MDC by showing and being vocal and being articulate about these needs and expectations, as well as accountability and how we can bring that to the laws that are being set forth in our discussions. So that's why I've applied. I haven't been aware of it from the beginning. I have to let you know, but my goodness, every time I learn about it, I think, this is where I need to be. I need to make a significant impact in the RVT profession and in veterinary medicine as a whole by giving my input. And so that's why I've applied, and I'm very appreciative that you have invited me to interview so that I can give you some information about me, that you can see that I actually could be a very valuable member of your committee and be an active member in your committee. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Again, sorry about not having my video on, but love your enthusiasm for the profession. I think it's great. So my question is, are you familiar with the functions of a licensing board or committee and the laws governing veterinary medicine in California? And do you have sufficient time to commit to the MDC for their collaboration, research projects, meetings, etc.?
If you could repeat the question one more time, could I ask you? I missed the second question.
Oh, no problem. I
The
actually was
licensing?
thinking that too. Yeah. Are you familiar with the functions of a licensing board or committee and the laws governing veterinary medicine in California? That's the first question. And then the second question is just, do you have time for this?
Thank you. Those are great questions and definitely things that I believe applicants as well as the board has to take into consideration, because if you have an applicant who's great on paper but really does not have the time, that's not going to be a successful outcome. So as far as my familiarity and knowledge of the licensing board, I'm definitely familiar. I have a knack of reading a lot, and I'm very much a visual learner. And so I love documents. So I will tell you that if I cannot recall something, I will definitely look it up, because I'm very much into being accurate, knowing where things are in our different documentation of the California Veterinary the Medicine Practice Act, or the Practice Act as we call it, and really knowing the verbiage used, what it specifically means. And, you know, as we go along in the years, we realize that actually the way the verbiage is actually spelled out was not actually the intent, and therefore we need to make changes. And so I feel like I have a good understanding of a licensing board, the functions, the way procedures happen, because it's a very formal process. And the California Practice Act has been something that has been drilled in me since I graduated at Parkland College in Illinois in 1997. I was in the Midwest, and I did all of my internships alongside the veterinary students at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So I love it, and that's actually where I started my college years, UC. And, you know, I knew I was going to go to California. So when I came here, and I realized I'm not going to be called a CVT, which is what they're called in Illinois, in the Midwest, the Certified Veterinary Technician title. Here, I would be called an RVT. From that point on, it became my personal mission to figure out what exactly does it mean to be an RVT. So since that time, and back then we had computers, but we did not have the internet. So I looked up the Veterinary Practice Act, and I actually read, and I had so many copies throughout the years because of how many times I opened it and looked up information. And that is what I look at as my, I hate to say Bible because I don't want to put that in there, but it is definitely my book. I'm an RVT, and these are all the things I can do. These are also the things a veterinarian can do. These are also the things a veterinary assistant can do. And with those 3 designated specific roles, we make up veterinary medicine in California. And so I am familiar with that. I abide by it. I find it so interesting and surprising that at times I'm working alongside an RVT who has been an RVT for a number of years, but they still don't know what they can and cannot do. So it has been my lifelong passion to educate my colleagues to know what an RVT can and cannot do. If they can't even know, how can the general public know? So that has been something that I absolutely embrace. I think is the utmost importance, as that is my career's license as an RVT, to understand and know what's in my Practice Act. So I do read that. I have referred to it a number of times, and I definitely feel that as the years go by, the Veterinary Medical Board will make changes because, as we can see in the past couple of years, the world can change. So I'm very much wanting to be a part of that process, knowing that there's established regulations currently, but that we continue to evolve together.
Great, thank you.
Next question. How do you feel your education, background, and experience have prepared you for membership on the MDC, and what assets do you think you can bring to the MDC that would complement the current membership of the committee?
Sure, and I'm sorry, I just realized the time commitment. For a fact, I'm very busy, but this is something that I wanted to say, and I'm sorry I missed it, is that I am absolutely committed to making all of the meetings, to spending time and committing time and dedicating time to research all of the issues that we're going through. And I know how that can be. It's not 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week. It is absolutely consuming some weeks. So I definitely have the opportunity to prioritize my busy schedule to be a part of this because it is something I absolutely believe in and want to be a part of. And I'm sorry. So with that, I did speak earlier about my background, having worked for biotech, big pharma, working as a veterinary technology instructor at Carrington College. I've also been just recently hired at Foothill College for the vet tech program. So I'm on both advisory committees as far as the schooling and education. So I give input at both Carrington and Foothill on what the expectations are for RVTs in private practice and in research from my my experience and what I continue to be involved in. And I feel that sorry, you may not know this, but I'm also in my last year of obtaining my bachelor's in applied science degree in veterinary technology from St. Petersburg College. And that degree is the combined clinical nursing and hospital management degree that when I began, that was the only program that was available as a bachelor's in veterinary technology online. Since then, I believe it was this past January, Penn Foster became the second fully accredited program. But I'm set to finish in May of next year. And I will tell you, I have taken so many courses in veterinary technology, and I have taught all the courses at Carrington College throughout the 2-year program there. And when I see what I'm learning and how far the education and progression of our profession as an RVT, I am so excited because there have been so many things that when I was licensed back in 1997 to now, they have progressed beyond my wildest dreams as far as an RVT and what we can do, what we're expected to learn, and what accountabilities we have. And so I feel very much like someone who has been able to very much live the life of an RVT, in that I have played the role of an RVT in different arenas, and yet I still progress in my career. Next year, I'm slated to take the CVPM exam, and once I get that licensure, I can make even more of an impact in the veterinary medical community, and the scope of my knowledge and experiences will grow again. And so I feel that my background, my experiences, my knack for reading and really liking to be as accurate as possible. I'm also a technical writer and communicator, so I can't like turn off my editing skills. Every time there's a typo or grammatical error, it bugs me. So I really feel like I can see how all of those things are coming to the point in my life where I'm much older, I'm much more experienced, and I have met so many students who are starting the career, and I've met so many people who have left the career. To have a good knowledge of our profession from beginning to end and the middle, and figure out how it is that I could contribute by giving those people a voice in my representation to the MDC.
Great, thank you for being with us. I have the next question. Recommendations made by the MDC are based on its consumer protection mandate and are not always popular with the general profession. How do you think you will be able to handle making decisions based on the needs of consumers and their pets that may be unpopular with your colleagues?
That is something that I think all of us deal with day to day. And I believe, I'm a strong believer in understanding. So if the consumer understands why a regulation was put into place, what the background history was or story was, what were the events that occurred that led to this legislation, what current status actually exists to modify the proposed legislation, and what is actually move forward and become legislation, become law, I think the consumer, once they understand, that will be key to being accepting of things that at first glance seem absolutely something that they would not be an advocate for. There are so many things that we see on social media that are very emotionally charged. It's polarizing. You're either for it or you're against it, and you can make that decision in the first 2 seconds. For me, that's where I feel my approach is to take a step back, present things in a very welcoming, non-threatening manner, and educate consumers to help them understand what this unpopular belief or law or consensus has been and why. And so I am very much very rule oriented. However, the average layperson is very much led by emotions. So when you present things in a way to show that this is actually with good intentions, there's actually reasoning behind it that behooves you and your pet, that protects you and your pet, I believe that they would then come around and actually start to realize that, yes, indeed, this is not something I wanted to be a part of or agree with, but once you explain it like that, it makes sense, and I will support that. So that's my approach with so many things that I have to deal with in my staff, in schools, with my colleagues, as far as trying to show them the different aspects and the reasoning and information why things are the way they are. And so far, as long as you can find a way to make that connection with the consumer or the other person that you're speaking with, make that connection so that you can educate them, my experience has been positive with the results.
So that sounds like you're addressing the consumer aspect of my question. How do you feel about being a part of decision-making that your colleagues will not be happy with?
Oh, yeah. See, I'm sorry. Same way. With my colleagues, the great thing about it is that I believe in open discussion and I love open dialogue. So being respectful, continuing to hear everything that people say and actually hearing it, not just listening and figuring out a response, hearing what they're saying, going back to research it, and then coming up with another round of discussions usually is the way that we can come up with agreements. And like you said, if they're unpopular, if they're decisions that the majority of my teammates or my colleagues or my committee members don't agree with, I feel that if we can understand the concepts, somehow, some way, there will be a crack so that we can start understanding the different perspectives, but respectfully discuss and figure out how to get a resolution that we actually feel that certain points are checked off, because that's the whole reason why we have changes in legislation. There are issues that need to be addressed and need some sort of resolution. So that's what I would do with my team members or colleagues. And I know it's not a fun thing. No one likes to be the bearer of saying something that the group as a whole probably doesn't like or doesn't agree with. But again, I go back to just education and respectfully discussing, making sure that every point of view and bullet point is researched, is validated, is justified, and to see whether or not the actual outcome is the best. And if it is, then I'm hoping with time, when we start making changes, minds can start to see that actually this was for the best.
Great, thank you.
I believe I'm next. As an RVT, we assume you're familiar with the current trends in veterinary medicine, but which issues have affected you directly?
I think all of the issues have affected many of us in many ways, but probably the top two that have affected me personally in my small animal general practice hospital that I manage are telemedicine and licensing requirements. So telemedicine has affected us because again, this is a controversial issue, but when we have clients who have pets who want the opportunity to have telemedicine appointments and subsequent prescriptions, etc., my medical director is strongly an advocate of in-person exams. And I think we all have experienced the time where, practicing veterinary medicine was so almost impossible in person. But just the fact of a physical exam and the palpation and the tactile assessment that is done behooves the actual firsthand exam to be done. And so telemedicine has been something that is definitely controversial. I can see that certain type of appointments where it may be very appropriate for, but for the vast majority, I feel that it is not in the best interest of the animal to do. The way my hospital ended up doing it is that for renewals of preventatives, we did do telemedicine, but for new injuries, new sickness, we definitely stuck with in-person. I know that's not a popular opinion of consumers, and it has been a very frustrating issue to continually discuss with new consumers. The way we stand is that we feel that the veterinarians and our vet staff do the best assessment within person. So telemedicine is definitely out there, and we'll see how it progresses. But the second issue that has affected us a lot is licensing. So I did have one RVT who was gaining her initial license, and that went okay. There was a lot of delays, but it proceeded successfully. But the fact of licensing renewals and meeting CE requirements has been a struggle and challenge for many. The DCA is charged with making sure that we regulate licensees. And I think that it comes to the point where not knowing what's ahead with the pandemic and how long it was going to last affected all of us. And finding ways to actually get the hands-on CE requirements or live CE requirements were so challenging for so many. Even with students, when I was teaching, I had to teach certain AVMA standards and skills that had to be taught and had to be performed by the students during the pandemic. So that was very challenging. So I think with telemed, there's a lot of discussion that can continue to happen and that we'll see changes with. But those have affected me the most. And given my hospital staff and my medical director, we maneuvered through it. But with the waivers that have been given, it definitely helped many. So another reason why I would like to be a part of this is because I feel that you have a pulse on what is happening in veterinary medicine and how it really affects us right now. And it has affected us in a positive way, despite everything negative with the pandemic.
Okay, thank you for that, Larissa. I guess a question that I have is, do you have any particular issue or issues that you would like to see the MDC address at this time?
One thing that has been an ongoing situation with our profession as an RVT as a whole in the nation is just the compensation factor. So I think that there are many ways and many hospitals, many owners of veterinary hospitals that try to address the staff shortage issues, the amount of RVTs we lose every year just because the compensation is not enough to reasonably live. And I would like to see the compensation of RVTs as a placeholder in the MDC committee, only because I feel like that will address the issue instead of putting Band-Aids over the problem. I think because of my classes, I've had to do several papers, and back in 2020, there's a stat where about 56% of households in the US own pets. And if more than half of the households in our nation have pets, that means that people like pets, that people love them, that people care for them. As a child, I wanted to become not a veterinarian. I never wanted to be a veterinarian. I didn't want to diagnose, but I wanted to do like a nursing, hands-on with the animals, and luckily found out about the vet tech profession later in life. But my calling started because I wanted to care for animals. And so a lot of the issues that we're seeing in our profession with short staffing, with high turnover rates, all of that stems, I believe, with the compensation. And so I would love to have the MDC address it in the years to come, because it's something that if we can solve that or address it, slowly but surely, the other issues that branch off from that will be self-resolving, I feel.
All right, I have the next question. Can you think of any position that you hold or activities you are currently involved in that may present a conflict for you to serve as a member of the MDC and thus a representative of the VMB?
I actually am involved in a lot of things as far as in the veterinary medical field, and I don't see any conflict. If anything, I just see like water pathways from a lake to trickle down into the tributaries as far as information. So I actually think it's a good thing that I'm involved in a lot of areas in research and education and private practice in veterinary medicine that would not be a conflict and would actually benefit from my involvement and vice versa on the committee if that ends up happening.
Cool, thank you. You'll find that this committee will take you down lots of rivers and lots of tributaries. It's quite an adventure.
Yeah, you definitely need the life jacket.
I got my life jacket on, and also I'm from the islands. I'm from Guam and Hawaii, so I can swim like you have no idea. So I'll be fine.
Perfect, perfect. I have the last question, and it's basic. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the board today?
Yes, I would like to say that over, since 1997 up until now, I've been an RVT. Over the years, I just want to tell you that RVTs are pretty awesome people. There are so many hats that an RVT wears that I have never in any other industry met or known stronger women than I do in this. And it would absolutely fill my life with a lot of fulfillment to actually contribute in a positive way because I feel like change is inevitable. I would like to be part of that change in making sure that we actually are directed in the right direction because we're going to be moving forward anyways. So I really hope that the MDC does consider me as a strong candidate because of my experiences, because of the respect and admiration I have for the RVTs in our field, and the veterinary assistants and the veterinarians who make our family in the veterinary medical world. I feel that I would be a great advocate to educate, to communicate, and to actively participate. And for me, that is absolutely a passion where that's what I do each day. So if you come to my hospital, you'll see my RVTs, my veterinarians, and my vet assisting and kennel staff very positively interacting with each other because we understand our profession is extremely challenging. The pandemic has put additional challenges so much on us, so much pressure. New owners want and demand care, and it's up to us to make sure that we got it. If we're an RVT, if we're a DVM, if we're a vet assist, we got our stuff together. We are competent, we are skilled, and we're going to continue to be better each day. What better way than to serve us by being on the committee that will then help the board make decisions on our veterinary medicine in California. So I enjoy what I do. It is something that I advocate for and have been for a while. And in everything I do, I absolutely respect the profession and I try to find ways to make it better because there is room for improvement. There are and always will be controversies, but I feel that we can make changes in the right direction.
Okay, thank you for applying. Thank you for interviewing. It was an amazing interview. I wrote down, "I love documents" as your campaign slogan. Next applicant is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next applicant is Leslie Phillips, and Dr. Bradbury is going to be starting with the first question.
Yeah, I'm trying to, is this Leslie? No, where is Leslie Phillips? I just want to see her while I'm, let's see. Is she?
I don't see her yet either.
Okay. Oh, there she is. I saw, there you are. Okay, I just want to put you on the stage. Hi, thank you for coming today and for interviewing with us and for applying for the position. The first question is a pretty basic one. Why are you interested in this position? I can't hear you.
This is the moderator. She is unmuted. So Leslie, you might need to click on the drop-down arrow next to your microphone and select settings and set your input and output to 100.
This is the joys of the pandemic. We're all getting more technically savvy. It just is sometimes painful.
And this is the moderator. Leslie, you might want to click on your drop-down menu next to your microphone and select a different microphone under settings, or you can go up to the top of your screen where it says audio and video and select the call-in feature for your audio.
I still haven't figured out which layout I like best. Do I want the faces on top or on the side? I don't know if I'll get used to it. Hopefully not for much longer.
I think you can call in and you can be on video and also call. Is that correct, moderator?
That is correct. So if Leslie goes to the top of your screen where it says audio and video, there is a call-in option. In fact, we have a slide for the audio. If my co-moderator could show slide 58, I believe slide 58 is for the audio and calling in.
See.
Do you see that, Leslie? You can nod yes or no.
Yeah, I see the audio video on my screen at the top, personally.
I see Leslie. She's picking up her phone. She's doing something with the phone. Do you think she needs to restart, moderator? Should we go out of order? Or what's your recommendation?
It looks like she's connected by phone now. It shows a phone next to her name. So Leslie, you might try unmuting your microphone. It looks like you're connected, your audio is connected by phone now. So.
Do you want to say hello?
Leslie, you'll have to unmute your phone and your computer.
Okay, how is this now?
Oh, there you are.
Hey.
Oh, wonderful.
Does this work? Can you guys hear me pretty well this way?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm so sorry for that. I have multiple computers going on. The camera wasn't working on one of them, so I switched to this one this morning. Did not know the microphone didn't work on this one. I really apologize for all of that.
No problem. Do you want me to repeat the question?
For your patience. No, I have the question. Again, thank you guys so much for your patience. Thanks for holding out for me. My interest in the position. So my first two jobs, first in a horse stable, and then I actually worked for a mixed human practice. We did general practice, and we also did psychiatric outpatient care. So my interest in this position, as well as my ongoing interest in my field, I can really trace back to being seated in those two first jobs. In both cases, it was extraordinarily important to make sure that there's always someone present to advocate for our patients, because they weren't always in a position to do so for themselves, even the human patients under, those conditions. In the end, they have to trust us to do what is best or on their behalf, and they don't always have a choice in that matter. In the same vein, I think that the consumers have to trust us, and that is one of the most important aspects of our job. I cannot fathom a more significant or vital way to serve my field than in continuing to ensure that the bridge between the consumer space and how we practice remains established and strong.
Great, thank you, and thanks for sticking with that.
Hi, next question. Are you familiar with the functions of a licensing board or committee and the laws governing veterinary medicine in California? And do you have sufficient time to commit to the MDC for collaboration, research projects, and meetings?
Yes, very intimately familiar. I've been an advocate for education and compliance of the Veterinary Practice Act in my current practice, and I've kept updated with all of the proposed and enacted amendments. Though I haven't been physically present at the meetings, I have followed agendas and minutes and often video recordings of meetings for years and years and years. I've been kind of an unofficial liaison between my hospital and even sort of my regional practice and board meetings, the most current happenings, what are being discussed, and I've actually really enjoyed it. As far as my understanding of the board's function, I know that the mission of the medical board is to protect consumers through licensing and regulations of veterinary healthcare professionals and through objective enforcement of the Medical Practice Act, and to promote access to quality medical care through those licensing and those regulatory functions. And I know that the MDC's role in that is that they exist to assist and do research for and to report back to the Veterinary Medical Board, as well as to help facilitate open discussion with the public on those topics that they're considering. And yes, I definitely do have the time to dedicate to the board and anything that might need of me.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for joining us. And I have the next question. How do you feel your education, background, and experience have prepared you for membership on the MDC? And what assets do you think you can bring to the MDC that would complement the current membership of the committee?
Well, my first experience was in a long-established small animal private practice. It was an all-HA private practice, and I was very, very fortunate in being able to start my career in a hospital where we also did emergency, we did critical care, we did a lot of surgeries, lots and lots of amazing surgical opportunities. We saw exotics, and this being in Texas, exotics didn't mean only pocket pets. We got to see things like kangaroos and llamas and wallabies. Very Joe Exotic sort of experience in my very first practice. So I am able to bring in, even though it looks like most of my experience is in small animal practice, which is definitely already represented on the committee, I do have some exotic experience, and I still do have friends that are in exotic shelter medicines, wildlife, and livestock. And like I said, working there gave me a lot of opportunities to learn, but also to see how regulations and laws and establishing standards in effect do elevate the quality of medicine to provide to our patients and clients, and it's an absolutely integral part of the practice. After that, I went on to start a new practice with some of my associates from that first one. So in addition to seeing all of these regulations in practice in an established setting, we had to do a lot of research to discover now where those were and how to enact them in a brand new practice being built from the ground up, which was absolutely an amazing experience and very humbling. And from there, when I moved to California, I briefly took a job in critical care, but ultimately left that because I was not credentialed. So I felt that a lot of what I could do was hampered by the fact that I couldn't do a lot of the technical things that I felt would really be fulfilling in critical care and emergency at that time. So I took a job at a corporate, so now the other end of the spectrum, small animal practice. And that also gave me some learning opportunities in that there was a staff there that was interested in being compliant, but simply did not have access to understand what compliance looked like or how to access it or how to get support. So I had to unlearn Texas law and regulation, relearn California very, very quickly, and had the opportunity to help them update and enact those compliances. The other experiences that I have that might be an asset, I know that Mdc has a very, very impressive contingent of members with a stunning array of experience. So this part of the topic is a lot more difficult. I can't say that I do have experience in unilateral hospital leadership in establishing standards, protocols, and compliance, particularly in situations where those haven't always been a welcome change. And I was able to create an environment and a team that took pride in how improving our patient care and client relations was a direct result of establishing and updating compliances. I also learned how to redirect a team that had some issues where hospital culture had driven a wedge between staff and clients. With education and training centered around the idea of partnership with our clients, I felt like I impacted an atmosphere where clients were part of that circle of care that, these caring and empathetic veterinary professionals already had. It just maybe hadn't quite yet expanded to include the clients that are part of this experience. Also my field of studies, those mean that I do have some experience in research and in creating clear and concise and objective reports. I studied English literature and forensic anthropology, which I recognize are slightly outside of the purview of veterinary medicine, but I do feel like that they gave me a broad educational background and experience. Though I don't, as you can see in my credentials, have experience writing reports as far as for advocacy and committee, unfortunately. I do have some experience in, like I said, with English literature and the forensic anthropology, researching, writing objective, clear, and concise reports based on the information that we've been able to discover, presenting that information in a clear and concise manner. And the forensic medicine also meant that I have some training in juridical language and forensic research presentation.
Great, thank you.
Hi, good morning. So recommendations made by the MDC are based on its consumer protection mandate and are not always popular with the general profession. How do you think you will be able to handle making decisions based on the needs of consumers and their pets that may be unpopular with your colleagues?
So sorry. I love this question. I guess I'm getting a little choked up about it. career, I have always placed patient and client advocacy above a lot of other impediments that we can find in our daily practice. Sometimes that has meant very hard discussions, whether I am supporting board regulations, whether I'm supporting established quality of medical protocols, whether I am supporting OSHA standards or client wishes. That hasn't always meant that I'm the most popular person in the break room by lunchtime, but I also know firsthand how a team or peers or coworkers know that best practices are often behind those purposes. And it only requires a little open and honest discussion most times later. And it's simple enough to understand that a lot of these standards and protocols are in place because people who are in a position of establishing them know ultimately what is best and why. So being held responsible for inconvenient changes would not be a new experience for me. I feel like I have always been able to take advantage of that opportunity to educate and hopefully, if not at least, mitigate perceived contentions or controversies.
Thank you for that, Leslie. So for the next question, as an RVT, we assume you are familiar with current trends in veterinary medicine, but which issues have affected you directly?
Oh boy, that's a lot. I really, really love this question too. So in the interest of brevity, particularly because it took me so long to update my technological issue here, I'm going to stick to one in particular. So I know that the board has been talking about how telehealth practices can potentially negatively impact quality of care since the doctor is limited to the extent of the physical exam that they can perform in that manner, realistically. But due to doctor scarcity, more than ever, practices that I've worked with are utilizing veterinary technician appointments for pets when they have an established patient-client-doctor relationship in that hospital, and the doctors are on site. But I have been in a position of wondering whether or not this situation is always in the best interest of the consumer across the board. So, for instance, to tie this in with a sub-trend to this trend, I have been seeing slews of appointments for routine cytokine inhibitor injections. I'm not going to use the brand name, but there we are. And I feel like often these pets have a lot more going on than simple pruritus, right? They have signs of active deep dermatitis, fleas, even endocrine or an oncological process occurring that is causing what the client sees as itchiness, but obviously there's something a lot more important going on beneath it. So we have created a situation where we have to hope that the RVT has the ability to not only identify, but educate and advocate the requested therapy might not be in the pet's or the consumer's best interest in a way that they can understand. By they, I mean the consumer. And I worry that without proper background and confidence, even one volatile interaction can mean that that technician was not ready to be a unilateral advocate and may withhold such a recommendation in the future. And patients and clients are just not made aware of potentially conflating conditions that pets can suffer. So, I'm sorry, to wrap this all up, in short, consumers are in a position where they are begging for access. I think we all know this. And it's up to us to decide whether or not the level of care, RVT appointments, telehealth, is adequate and for what situations. We have to make sure that is my RVT, with their level of experience, knowledge, diligence, still providing the best care to the consumer if we allow this process to continue at the scale that we currently are.
Okay, I have the next
friend.
I have the next question, and you possibly may have already answered it, but do you have any particular issues that you would like to see the MDC address at this time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, that trend that I was just referring to, it's one that I see every day, and I feel very, very seriously about it. I love seeing RVT appointments. I love it. Not all RVTs do. And because of doctor scarcity, which is, again, something that you guys are already discussing, we're in a position where that and telehealth are right up there as far as immediate concerns and circumstances. So, I mean, it's divided right now into two prongs of issue: access to care and RVT development, and continuing to define their role in current veterinary medicine in an appropriate manner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you think of any positions that you hold now or activities you're currently involved in that may present a conflict of interest for you to serve as a member of the MDC and therefore representing the vet board?
No, not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. You made it. Is there anything else you would like to share with the board?
Yes, definitely. I know that you guys have our resumes and our letters of intent right in front of you. And I just want to answer the question you guys haven't asked that wasn't on the agenda today, which is the glaring omission of my experience in research writing, regulations, and writing other regulatory policy. So I absolutely know that's there. I have not yet in my career had the opportunity to influence policy. But I do think I can and do understand the intersection of policy with practical reality of these regulations and how they manifest in practice with clients. I have been able to observe how the amendments that you guys have made can clarify language or else make major changes that have appreciable impact on how we practice and how this translates to protections for our consumers. I believe careful research and consideration going into topics that decide my profession, standards, and consumer protections, I would really be excited to do anything that contributes to this. I understand that, again, this is a lot like applying to drive a jet engine or make one. Do I even know what a jet is? When you haven't even seen me make a paper airplane yet. But what I do want to say is this really has been my passion since entering the field of medicine, even before veterinary medicine. I want, as many of us do, to be the voice for those that don't have one. Often that is our patients. Sometimes it's our associates within our field, and often it's consumers. I, as a practice manager, had so many opportunities to see the consumer's point of view. I know what it's like in the treatment room when we're seeing pets and we're so invested and we simply cannot understand the disconnect between us and the recommendations we're making and why we can't get the client to understand where we're coming from. And I know that simply builds walls between us and our consumer and how we're providing care to them. And I have made it one of my major goals in my practice, tearing down that wall. I think that so much consumer education and our ability to communicate has to do with how we're providing for the consumer. And again, I think that just having come off of a position of a practice manager, I'm primed right now in my practice for this role. I take a lot of faith in what you guys do. I have been watching Ms. Pulowski on the MDC board for years and years and years and years. I am a little embarrassed to say I also feel a little bit emotional about seeing her go. She has been the absolute most amazing advocate. She has had the most amazing demeanor. She has brought so much, not only in her position on the MDC, but wow, she's an RVT. You know, that means a lot to us. as RVTs. And I also think back to what Ms. Laredo said a couple months ago at the April meeting. Again, I know I'm kind of shooting for the moon here, but I would love the opportunity to be not only an advocate for consumers, but also for other RVTs in the field. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for that amazing interview, Leslie. And I agree, Christy Pulowski is one of our biggest celebrities on the board. It's like a night of 1,000 stars when we have board meetings here. The next applicant is Marie Usri. Front to the center stage, please. And Dr. Bradbury, I believe, cut in front of Kathy. And so we'll give the first question to Kathy. And then next question will be to Jennifer Laredo.
Great. Marie, are you all set?
Yes.
Audio,
ready when you
visual?
are.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Well, welcome. Again, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And again, thank you for the application to this very important position on a very important part of the vet board, the MDC. Why are you interested in the position in the first place?
Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm interested in this. In the past several years, I've found a passion for organized veterinary medicine. I think it's an exciting time to be an RVT and an exciting time to be in veterinary medicine in general. And so I'm looking for other ways that I can get involved and that I can serve.
Look up there. I don't know if anybody else could not hear you, but I couldn't.
Sorry, do I need to turn up the volume here?
I heard her response, Kathy.
Sorry, maybe it's my internet then. I apologize.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Now I can't hear you, Kathy.
Sorry, I muted myself. If you could just repeat the very end of it, I apologize.
Absolutely. I just think it's an exciting time to be an RVT. It's an exciting time to be in veterinary medicine in general. And I'm looking for other ways that I can become involved and other ways that I can serve.
Thank you very much.
Hi, next question. Are you familiar with the functions of a licensing board or committee and the laws governing veterinary medicine in California? And then second part, do you have sufficient time to commit to the MDC for their collaboration, research projects, and meetings?
Yes, so I've spent this year attending online the meetings of the Veterinary Medicine Board, Medical Board and the MDC in an attempt to gain better understanding, familiarize myself with how this process works. As a licensed RVT, I am very familiar with the rules and regulations of the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act. And through my involvement in organized vet med, I've remained current on proposed legislation that might affect those laws. As far as time goes, I am fortunate to have an employer that is very flexible and very supportive of me participating in these sorts of things. So yes, I can make that time commitment as well.
Thank you.
Welcome, and I have the next question. Let me pull it up here. How do you feel your education, background, and experience have prepared you for membership on the MDC? And what assets do you think you can bring to the MDC that would complement the current membership of the committee?
I think my education at Chico State not only gave me a strong background in animal science, it also provided me with many problem solving, critical thinking, research, and presentation skills that I can definitely implement there. As far as my experience in private practice, I've done very diverse work in various aspects of the practice, from large animal to small animal management, administration, and overseeing some of our regulatory compliance programs. I think one of the biggest things I can bring, though, is the perspective of somebody from a rural community in California with extensive large animal experience. I think it might be a perspective that is sometimes underrepresented.
Thank you, and I agree.
Thank you. And my question is recommendations made by the, this is my question, right? Yes. Recommendations made by the MDC are based on its consumer protection mandate and are not always popular with the general profession. How do you think you'll be able to handle making decisions based on the needs of consumers and their pets that may be unpopular with your colleagues?
I think it's important to keep in mind that we're a service-based industry and that patient care and consumer protection are top priorities because of that. As a manager, I've had to make many unpopular decisions because they were in the best interest of my team or the best interest of my practice. I like to make decisions based on evidence and data, not the popularity of the outcome. I realize that means that it may go against my opinion and the opinions of my colleagues, but I have no problem having those discussions and explaining my decisions and educating colleagues on why those decisions were made.
Thank you for that, Marie. The next question is, as an RVT, we assume you're familiar with the current trends in veterinary medicine, but which issues have affected you directly?
There are two that come to mind. The first were the licensing fee increases. And I know earlier this year, the MDC did a lot of research, made some presentations and gave some proposed fee schedules. And I appreciate all of the hard work that they did on that. Secondly, access to care is something that hits really close to home for me. I work in a rural, underserved community where at least a quarter of the population lives in poverty. My clinic makes frequent farm calls to facilities that are at least 3 hours away. So I've seen firsthand how access to care can be limited by financial resources, lack of transportation, availability of fully staffed vet clinics, hospitals willing to see various species, and even at times language barriers.
The next question is mine, which is why are you interested in this position?
No, Mark. That was the first question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
My question is number 5. Don't answer that first question. As a veterinarian, we assume you are familiar with current trends in veterinary medicine, but which issues have affected you directly?
That was just the previous question, though. I think it's the next one.
My God. I'm taking bad notes here. Answer this question if you would. Do you have any particular issues that you would like to see the MDC address at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to see the MDC take another look at the role of the RVT in veterinary medicine as a whole to determine if RVTs can expand their roles in providing veterinary care. I think there are a lot of opportunities there that could help in other areas where we are lacking, maybe with shortages of veterinarians and things like that. So I would like to see them take a look at that.
And now I think it's me. Again, and we've asked this of everyone. Can you think of any positions that you hold or activities that you currently are involved in that may present a conflict of interest to being on the MDC and therefore representing the VMB?
No, I can't think of anything. I mean, should I be given this position, it will become a priority. And again, I have an employer that's very supportive and is willing to give me the time that I need to do all of that. So I can't think of anything that would conflict with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm in turn this time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the board?
I would just like to say thank you for the opportunity to interview for this position on the MDC. I would like to thank the board for the thoughtful questions that you guys have asked us today. And thank you for your service and dedication. And I look forward to continuing my involvement in these meetings, whether that be as a member of the committee or as a member of the public.
Thank you. With all the questions going out of order and 4 candidates, it got a little confusing there in the end. But with the exception of me, I think we got everything in order. This was like one of those roundtable discussions that you see on public television about the current issues in veterinary medicine, because a lot of topics were touched upon, which is great. Hopefully, our audience is there, and so what we're going to do now. We've heard all the applicants being interviewed. The next step is to open the floor for any motions to fill the position from those interviewed.
Kathy, real quick, I'd love to fill it with all four of you guys, if we could, because we're very lucky. What a great group of candidates and great resumes. And thank you very much.
It's very impressive. It's a difficult decision.
I would second that. I really am impressed with all four candidates, and it's just remarkable how deep and talented this pool is. That's really impressive.
Yeah, this is Dr. Bradbury. I agree, and I didn't know if maybe it would be beneficial for us to discuss a little bit before just making a nomination, or would you prefer us to just nominate?
I think we can briefly do that.
Dr. Nunez, can I just say something even though I'm not on the board? Is it possible?
Yes.
Because it's only a comment and I'm not saying anything about any of the candidates.
Yes, as celebrity status, you can.
I just want to say this. I am so delighted to see so many candidates, because in the past there have been times when we didn't get any, or maybe one. And it is, I just want to thank everybody for applying, and continue applying. Even if you don't get the appointment, there will be other times. Stick with it, because it is so important. And I am just so grateful for all of the applicants, because we have 4 incredible applicants. I don't know how many there were. I just know that it is incredible that we got this many, because there have been times when we haven't gotten this many, and I am so thankful. So thank you all for applying, and it makes me, it makes me so proud and so happy to see this many applicants. So thank you.
I'm going to jump in because I had my hand up and nobody called on me. I think we had 4 amazing candidates, and I want to go back to the last few meetings when I've been talking about how there's just not a lot of interest for people who want to do all of this work basically for free. So I'm so happy that we have these candidates. But I want to point out, because we have 4 candidates and 1 position, and everybody keeps talking about celebrity Christy Pulowski. Christy applied twice for this position. So everybody, the 3 of you who don't get the position, please apply again. There will be another position on the MDC, I believe in 2023, Leah's term is up, and my position on the board, which is by default on the MDC, is ends next year. So please don't go away. 3 of you won't get this position, but I really encourage you to apply again. I'd also like to point out that we do have 2 candidates who went through AVMA approved RBT programs and 2 alternate route candidates. So I love to see that there's diversity in the interest in this position. So it's 10 days until my birthday, and I'm so excited. This is like my present. Love it.
I apologize, I didn't see your hand raised. But I guess to sort of help us move along, I'll be the first one to say an opinion. I thought that Larissa and Leslie were amazing, absolutely amazing. I believe that Catherine and Marie have more experience with all the issues and may be able to really jump on. There may be less of a learning curve, is my opinion.
I'll jump in. I think maybe this is a good time. Thank you for that. And thank you for all the 4 candidates and for going through all of our interview questions that we have. And I'm going to just jump on in there, and I'm going to make a motion to nominate Catherine Buff. So I'm going for it. And I thank everybody. We just need to nominate a person. So I'm making that leap.
All right. If there is a second, then we can vote on it. Or if anyone wants to make any other comments, we can move along that route as well.
Second.
Is Dr. Nolan's hand up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was up though before the nomination was made, so I was waiting to get called on, but then Diane came up with a nomination. So
Has it been seconded? If it hasn't been seconded, then you can say your piece.
I don't know.
I think Jennifer Laredo had seconded. Correct, Jennifer?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then it's been motioned and seconded. We can open up for discussion. Dr. Nolan?
Okay, thanks. So I actually had, I was heading in a different direction because I felt that I really do agree that I think that both Catherine and Marie have a lot to offer. They all have a lot to offer. I was really interested in the access to care comments that Marie said in her rural background, and I think that we do have an underrepresentation on the VMB and the MDC in that aspect. Whereas I think we have really good representation with Dr. Salicito and others when it comes to shelter medicine. So I just thought that maybe Marie would bring an interesting perspective that we don't have currently on the board. So that's what I was going to say. But I think again, this is a really difficult decision. So.
Yeah, all four of them really hit home runs on different issues. Was there another hand, Dr. Bradbury? Is your hand?
Yeah, I actually felt the same way as I agree that the two strongest candidates for the position are Catherine and Anne Marie, but I feel like we have really zero representation from a rural setting, and Dr. Nolan, you bring some large animal obviously to the equation, but we certainly don't have any RVT representation there, and it's just a perspective I feel like we are lacking. And so for that, and I agree that we have some strong shelter representation on the board, and we need to have all of the perspectives. So I was going in that direction as well, but wanted to talk about it a little bit.
Okay. Any other comments on the motion for Catherine Buff? Hearing none, we can open it up. Since it's the motion, we can open it up to comments from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I will open up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment to access the feature.
I don't see any hands.
I do not either, so would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
How stressful is this, applicants waiting for the vote? It's been motioned and seconded to appoint Catherine Buff to the position. If you agree with that, signify by saying yes and call for the vote, please.
Ms. Bowler?
Yeah, this is so hard. And I hate these when we have to do it this way, but I guess that's been our process. I think Catherine is I guess I'm going to vote yes. I would love to see a rural person, and I know Riverside is semi-rural as well, but I kind of agree with what we've been talking about, but since this is the first vote out of the box, I'll vote yes.
Dr. Bradbury?
I think Catherine is also a great candidate, but I'm going to vote no for the reasons I mentioned.
Ms. Laredo?
I vote yes. I think both candidates were great, but I'm always going to default to a candidate who went through an AVMA approved RBT program.
Ms. Prado?
I'm going to vote yes.
Dr. Solocito?
I'm kind of leaning towards what Dr. Nolan and what Dr. Bradbury was sharing earlier, so I'm voting no.
Dr. Nolan?
I agree with Kathy. This is horrific, but I do feel strongly about the access to care from a rural and large animal background, so I'm going to vote no.
Dr. Nunez?
My vote is no.
So we have 3-4, the motion died.
So can I go ahead and make a motion to nominate Marie Ussery?
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further comments from the board?
For the record, we have Nolan making the motion and Dr. Bradbury seconding, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional comments, can we open it up for the public for comments?
All right, this is the moderator. I'm opening up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. All right, we have a request for comment from Anita Hudson. So Anita, you've been given permission to unmute yourself. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I had a little trouble unmuting myself. I just wanted to say, wow, this has been amazing and I'm really glad to hear there's so many applicants because I know that's something that's always been a thing is trying to get more participation. I just wanted to mention regarding the alternate route status for people, I wanted to put a reminder out there that there are many people that are that did get their license through the alternate route, but then also do follow up with other points of education, including AVMA programs. So I don't know if that was I don't know if that was really discussed as part of the things that you were looking for, but I just wanted to point that out, Jennifer, that there's lots of us that are alternate route, but that did also follow up with other education to kind of cement that in. But I wanted to say thank you again to everybody for not only holding these, but having them be public so that we can all listen and participate. And this is wonderful. So thank you so much.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for comment, Mr. Board President. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Any further comments from the board? Call for the vote.
Ms. Bowler?
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations, Marie. Welcome to the board. Welcome to the MDC. And I hope we see applications again from the other three. You guys are amazing. I think we have time to move to agenda item 7. I don't think that's going to be very long. update, discussion, and possible action regarding board approval of RVT colleges and post-secondary institutions.
Yeah, thank you, members. I do believe this is going to be brief. I know we talked about this issue a few times at the board meetings, and it's the issue of creating an approval program for the RVT schools. And as you know, we have regulations and have had regulations for this program, and the board has yet to implement this program. And so I'm left with trying to decide what resources we can devote to this entire program. But then when doing that research and looking at all the other accrediting bodies and the approval bodies that exist in California, I think that there's a lot of overlap. And I think that's something that really should be looked at, of whether or not we should be in this arena. My team does not have the expertise to review and approve school curriculums. I think there's a lot of other entities who are already doing that, and they have a lot of experience, and they do a lot of on-site inspections, and they are able to hold these schools accountable when there are concerns. So my hope was to be able to provide you some amendments that would require both legislative and regulatory amendments to remove the board from this approval process. Unfortunately, the more that I researched, the more work it became. And more research needs to be done, and I just don't have enough hours in the day to do that. So as much as it kills me, I'm just asking for some assistance from the MDC to help me research this and present the information back to the board for a recommendation.
Okay. Nothing is ever simple in our world of regulation and legislation. What seemed like a straightforward thing, our involvement in this process may have seemed duplicative because others were doing it. Seems that there's more to the story than that. I see Kathy's hand up. The action that's requested is for the board to direct this issue to the MDC to research and evaluate this issue further, and then submit recommendations to the board for consideration. So welcome to the board, the MDC, Marie. Kathy, do you have a comment?
No, I was just going to make the motion, and I totally agree. It's a complex situation that we look to the MDC to help with, because it is true. We do not have the expertise and to do this, and I'm not even sure why it was there in the first place, but it was, and so that was going to be my motion, repeating what you just said, Mark.
Well, I can tell you why it was there in the first place, but we'll leave that all to the MDC.
Yeah, I didn't mean to
So
say exactly.
you've made a motion, and is there a second?
I'll second.
That. Two people spoke at once. Who claims it?
I will. It's Jennifer.
Okay. It's been motioned and seconded. Further discussion from the board? Moderator, if you would please.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
And just FYI, I'm not terribly offended when you called me Madam President. Any further discussion from the board? I'll call for the vote, please.
Ms. Bowler?
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Dr. Noland?
Aye.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is agenda item 8, access to veterinary care committee report. I how's everyone doing? It's noon time now. Feel like getting this one done. All right, I think we can handle this. Let's move on to the report from Dr. Nolan, please.
And Ms. Prado. So I'm going to go ahead and take the lead, but I just wanted to let you know, Diane, that if you have anything to add, please, feel free to jump in here. So we did have our Access to Veterinary Care Task Force first meeting on October 12th, and we had approximately 30 to 35 attendees. We started, I did start with discussing the mission of the Veterinary Medical Board, being to protect the California consumer through the regulation of veterinary medicine. And then we also discussed briefly that we fulfill that mission by developing, maintaining, and enforcing professional standards. We did a brief review of how the Access to Veterinary Care Task Force was implemented, and we stated that the objective...
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Before you begin, could you actually define what issue we're dealing with? You mean access to care? Just for those that in the audience that may not know exactly what the issue is.
So
how are you defining access to care in this task force?
So that's a very complex, actually. It's not as easy as it sounds, Mr. President. Access to veterinary care can be having consumers know they need care, having consumers being able to afford the care, having consumers being able to get to the care, having consumers even have care within the immediate location or vicinity. So that's a very, it's not as simple as you think. There are problems with rural communities having no veterinarians. There are problems with rural communities having veterinarians unable to treat certain species. There's a problem with people in urban situations that have veterinarians and they can't get to them because they can't use public transport. And there are also a great deal of people who can't afford veterinary care. So unfortunately, I wish it could be simpler, but it's not. It's a fairly complex problem. But did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Okay. So we did try to define the objective of the task force, and we stated that it was to determine actions the Veterinary Medical Board could take to increase access to veterinary care for consumers and their animals, obviously in the state of California. So, and I know Diane and I did a fair amount of research, and I tried to find several educational resources for the task force to actually take a look at. It was provided to the Veterinary Medical Board in your notes. I think we had the first piece of information that we looked at was a fairly large and complex. Well, actually, before that, I did remind the task force recent Veterinary Medical Board actions that we have done that we are hoping will increase access to veterinary care. I will remind the board of AB 1535, which basically eliminated the state board exam and now is using, will be implemented in January of 2022. We will now use the national exam or proof of recent practice experience, 2 years and 2,500 clinical practice hours if it's been longer than 5 years since the national exam was taken. We still require the veterinary law exam, which has been a mail-in. So we tried to kind of talk about some of that. We also mentioned that we are attempting to clarify electronic veterinary services by more clearly defining telehealth, telemedicine, teletriage, and we have actually approved the recommendation that was made by the Mdc and their legislative proposal. So those actions by the board hopefully are things that we have done to try to increase access to care. And then we actually took a look at the access to veterinary care research that was done jointly by the Maddie's Fund and the University of Tennessee. They put together a project that was funded by those two organizations that looked at barriers, current practices, and public policy relating to access to veterinary care. And they really, I think the bottom line to that report, it was, I think, 75 or 76 pages, was that it's a complex societal problem with many causes. And I think what really stuck out to me was that details on issues with standard of care as it pertains to access to care might be one area where the Veterinary Medical Board has the ability to affect change. But a lot of the other areas in that study having to do with different socioeconomic status, access, and things like that, I'm not sure how we as a board, I'm struggling to kind of fit us into that picture. We also looked, though, at the same time at Aligned Care, which has actually been supported by the University of Tennessee or come out of the University of Tennessee. It has sort of a One Health approach, which means that there's a three-pronged approach to increasing access to veterinary medical care. They use family support services from the local community. So that's their way to identify need by using an already established social services data bank. They find veterinary service providers in that local community who want to be a part of this effort. And then they also have been, then they look at grants and different philanthropic organizations that can provide funding for this. So the basic idea behind this is to recognize the families in need, to recognize the veterinary service providers. There is a copay, so the families are able to pay a portion of the cost of care, and then the philanthropic organizations step up and pay the remainder of the care. So we briefly looked at that. There's also the Fund for Animals that is for rural veterinary services, and they have provided wellness and emergency care for over 8,000 animals since the pandemic, since the COVID-19 has started. So we looked briefly at that. We also looked briefly at the Veterinary Medical Loan Repayment Program, which is called the VMLRP, if you like acronyms. They will pay up to $25,000 each year for 3 years to qualify educational loans from eligible veterinarians. They don't have to be right out of school. A lot of our graduates pay their loans off for 10 years, so they can apply for this program even if they're not directly out of school. And the federal government, NEFA, recognizes or finds different communities and areas within the state that are woefully underrepresented as far as veterinary care for food animals. And of course, this has a very, very large public health factor to this and zoonotic disease risk. The candidates that apply for the loan forgiveness program have to contribute 30% of their full-time veterinary services. So full-time employment would be 40 hours a week. They need to document that they are providing 30% of that to the species, the food animal species that are recognized as having a lack of care towards, like mostly beef cattle, dairy, swine, goats, sheep, that sort of thing. That program, there are actually, I think last year there were 6 areas that were recognized. 4 of those were in rural communities. 2 of them were for our state laboratory system. This year, in 2021, there were 8 recognized, so it's increasing. 2 were also in the laboratory, the state laboratory area, and 6 were in rural communities. Dr. Silva joined our task force and was very helpful in pointing out that they actually have made an offer to an applicant in one of these areas. At that stage on the 12th, they hadn't received confirmation that offer had been accepted. So I don't know, but it's another program that is basically government regulated that is trying to address access to care. So we did have quite a few comments made about different members of the veterinary community that are in the trenches, so to speak, and actually working at low or no cost community veterinary service centers that are trying to help with this problem. And one of the, I think in my mind, one of the things that really came out of this is it would be really great if we could gather data that actually not only, I don't really think we need to recognize what the need is. I think everybody knows there's a need. It would be nice to recognize what's being done currently in the veterinary medical profession in this regard. And the other thing that I came out of this meeting with was I really feel like we need more direction from the board as to what our charge is and where we fit in to this picture. I think that access to veterinary care is a very compelling issue right now. I think that the CVMA is trying to tackle this or is getting started in tackling this. I think that I personally feel like as a board, I would like to contribute. I'm just not sure where we fit into the picture and whether it might be the MDC gathering some data as far as current availability of resources that are being offered to the public, to the consumer. I'm not sure where we fit in because I feel that our mission is fairly narrow when it comes to changes we can make. But I could talk longer than this, but I probably shouldn't. It's almost lunchtime, so I apologize for that. Diane, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Just real quickly that I think just towards your last point of, kind of asking the rest of our board members, how many more task force meetings should we have? I was thinking perhaps like, 2 to 3 more. And, we're trying to tackle a lot. I think though that having this and having have this task force under the veterinary medical board is helpful to be able to engage others, to be able to contribute, to see how it is that we can possibly try to come up with steps that we can both protect the consumer and their pets. So I'm still looking forward to keeping this task force alive, but just, wanted to hear also the thoughts of our fellow board members. But it was an exciting first task force. So I'm happy to see, how many more we can do and just kind of what the thoughts of our other board members would be.
I did fail to mention that we had some public comment at the beginning of the task force, but it was actually directed toward another item on our agenda as far as the animal rehabilitation. So I'll just let that come up at the appropriate time.
Okay, I see Dr. Bradbury and Dr. Solicito next.
Thanks, you guys. It sounds like quite an informative day, and it sounds like a lot of participation, which is great. I am wondering, you had mentioned in the beginning of your presentation, Dr. Noland, about how after looking at all of this, you thought that the standard of care may be somewhere that we might be able to influence access to care and help with this. I just wondered if you might want to explain that a little bit better or expand on that.
I would love to. Do you remember when we went into great detail, a long discussion about whether dental radiographs were or were not a standard of care? I don't know if some of you were on the board at that time, and I'm showing my age, obviously, but
I think I came in at the end there.
Yeah, we had a very long and active discussion on that. And as I was doing research for this task force meeting and listening to people, I realized that we need to be very, very conscious and aware of the implications of us selecting standard of care because it needs to be minimum standard of care. We need to keep talking about minimum standard of care because what we do is we create tremendous conflict in some veterinary service communities when we keep increasing the minimum standard of care without considering what that does to people who can't afford it.
Yeah. Dr. Solcito?
Yes, thank you. Kind of like listening to Dr. Nolan's report, and I'm sorry, I was actually waiting for like a recording of the meeting that I could kind of listen to, but just from the very basic question of what access to care is, I believe we really need to have clarity as to what are the different aspects of access to care this the board would be involved or like tackling, because I feel like there is that problem with access to care about the veterinarian's ability to provide services against the ability of consumers to avail of those services, which comes down to their ability to pay, you know, which is totally different from a veterinarian's concern about the standard of care. So I think that those two needs to be fleshed out in details of what aspects of those like areas of access to care that we could have a clear idea of how to approach so that we could bridge the gap. I just feel that that is very important moving forward in the discussion of access to care, is to have clarity of what are we really trying to address. And coming from a municipal, shelter agency, I would say that the data that I have, the information that I have with regards to the community's needs, is probably different from like a private practitioner's like information that they get of clients' inability to pay or just not being able to sustain like the care according to the standard that is being what you call this practice. So I think those are areas that really needs clarity, and I hope that the task force will be able to bring in more stakeholders to be able to shed light to the details of this very important topic.
Kathy?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I was able to watch the first task force meeting, and thank you guys. You did a lot of work beforehand. And I thought and a lot of the commentary was quite useful too. Looked like a lot of individuals got on the call. So that's great. And I think having more is good. I think one of the things, because you guys have already articulated such a broad issue that sort of transcends areas in our purview and then areas that are unfortunately outside, things that are above our pay grade, as we would say. One of the things I think is the best thing about what we could do with this group, this task force, is gather information, continue to gather information about possibly, and the MDC's help, I think, in terms of the research would be quite helpful for you. Certainly the staff is overwhelmed. And anyway, with the normal activities that the board has, but just gathering information and be sort of a repository of what is available, what philanthropic things, are there big corporations, foundations, Ethos, Mars, do they have programs to subsidize veterinary loans like you talked about? What other governmental assistance? Is there anything that isn't food animal related, et cetera, or maybe AVMA? There may be other things out there, and to gather that together and either provide it to provide it to legislature, governor, some other individuals that might be able to take advantage of it, or even to our own practitioners, to make sure, especially, where we have geographic vacuums in the state. And I don't know about subsidized programs for consumers. There may be more things, and seems like you guys scratched the surface and you had some very interesting, it was new to me anyway, when I was listening to it, Jamie. I know you were already involved with it, but I thought, well, maybe there are more things that we can take advantage of or show veterinarians in California and or local jurisdictions how to take advantage. And maybe that's a good role for our task force to move into in the next coming months. So that was just what I thought.
So the task.
Jump in, Mark, because I don't know how Diane feels about this, but I agree with Kathy. There's a lot more to be found to discover. I don't personally have the time to do that, as you know, and that's what I think concerns me is I will do a poor job. I mean, I've tried to really. I think Diane has tried to delve into things, but it does seem that if we're going to gather more data, it would be nice to have the MDC help.
Okay, my opinion, because the task force is asking for clarification on direction. It is a complicated issue. I mean, when I think about access, I kind of think of access because veterinarians or veterinary care is too far away. So there's a distance aspect to it. There's an economic aspect to us. There's certain parts of the community who can't access because they can't afford it. And then the third branch of access is that there may not be enough veterinarians, and specifically veterinarians with certain specialties that also may not be available. And that is a subset maybe of the distance one. The next issue I have is this really our mission? What is our jurisdictional authority to solve this problem? I don't think we have the jurisdictional authority. I think we can participate in part of the grander solution to it, but we're not going to solve this issue on our own. And focusing specifically on what we do have authority to do. One is participating in the reducing barriers to licensure is going to help with the issues that's already on its way. Minimum standards for practice types. We've in regulation is different minimum standards for different types of practices like vaccine clinics. There's certain lowering of standards for a vaccine clinics that may help make veterinary services more available. That's already going down the pipeline. We definitely can serve as a source of distributing information to our licensees on whatever projects and so forth that are out there to help solve this or help contribute to the solution of this issue. And then the other issue we have authority over is expanding roles of RVTs, VAs, and paraprofessionals. That also is a big area that's kind of already in the works. So short of what we're currently doing, I'm not sure what more, and this is my humble opinion, what more we can ask of this task to do or accomplish, other than perhaps making clear definitions of what the issue is, what we have the ability to do about it, and that we definitely would be helpful to participate in other ventures that people may come up with on how we can support it. And is Maria Solicito, Dr. Solicito, is your hand still up, or is it hasn't been lowered? All right.
Actually, I just wanted to kind of add on to what you said. One of the things that I do know is that with some of the changes that we've been having, you know, in LA County, trying to address access to care, one of the things that was a great realization was the fact that there seemed to be a lot of practitioners in the communities that are willing to help and address the issues of access to care. We just don't have that structure, and people don't know how to help. So I think this is what maybe the task force can do, is to try to identify, how, like practitioners, and maybe do outreach to the practitioners to encourage them to participate in programs. So I just wanted
Okay.
to kind of mention that.
Any other comments from the board? And we can open it up to comments from the public, please.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public wishes to comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, we have Nancy Ehrlich as the first to want to make a comment. So Nancy, I'll let you know when you can unmute yourself. So Nancy, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. And Nancy, you're unmuted. You should have 3 minutes. All right, so it looks like your audio is perhaps frozen, so you might want to log out and log back in. We can move on to the next request for comment and come back to you. All right, so our next request for comment is from Karen Atlas. And Karen, I will let you know when you're able to unmute yourself. So Karen, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, you're unmuted, Karen.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for taking my comment. My name's Karen Atlas, and I am the president of the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition. We're a coalition who represents DBMs, PTs, RBTs, and consumers who are like-minded in our approach to increase safe access to properly trained and licensed physical therapists. We're really encouraged that an Access to Care task force was created so the facts can be realized that this issue truly is a crisis in California. Our coalition took the opportunity to submit a document for consideration and spoke at public comment during the Access to Vet Care Task Force meeting on October 12th. We educated the task force on the realities of the access to rehab crisis as it relates specifically to animal physical rehabilitation. Some have tried to convince this board that access to rehab care is not an issue by comparing the relatively low number of ophthalmologists or cardiologists or dermatologists practicing in our state compared to animal physical rehab therapists. Obviously, comparing different specialties does not provide a reasonable understanding of the issue and crisis at hand. The realities of animals not getting the rehabilitative care that they need have been identified time and time again, and we once again submitted letters from DBMs and consumers from various areas around the state to help demonstrate this dire need. The regulation still before the board today, that will be in agenda item 11D, fails to meet the stated objective and if enacted, will be directly responsible for unnecessarily closing the doors of legitimately practicing physical rehabilitation clinics today. This will, in turn, further reduce access to care for animals across California. The board opined, and we agree, that the only way to solve this issue is through a proper legislative remedy. Other states have worked to solve this issue through swift changes in their legislation, and it has worked well to improve the access to care. In 2018, a legislative bill, AB 3013, would have done a nice job in alleviating this problem, but the VMB opposed it, and unfortunately, they based their opposition largely on misinformation they were given. Consumers can't get the care and choice they want and need, and we've submitted a petition with thousands of signatures, and DVMs are not able to interprofessionally collaborate with qualified PTs as they have been asking for either. We will hope We will continue our quest to increase consumer access to rehab services and hope that the VMB will come to understand this truly is a crisis. The good news
30
is that
seconds.
the good news is that the resolution is not insurmountable and we can reasonably, adequately, and safely be addressed in legislation. Of note, the board will be asked to consider the final proposed regulatory language as it relates to animal rehab later today. We implore you to put a hold on all animal rehab language, which again, if enacted, will reduce access even further until a proper legislative solution is put into place. By merely putting a hold on this language, it will at least serve to not make the access to care issue even worse during these times of crisis. Thank you so much.
All right, and Nancy Ehrlich is back, so we're going to try letting her unmute herself again. And Nancy, you are unmuted. And Nancy, we are still unable to hear you. And we have Anita wanting to comment for you if your mic is not working, and it's not, so we'll go to Anita.
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, Anita, again, I know that Nancy was trying to bring up the original comment that she had this morning regarding RVTs providing some care for pets at home under the supervision of a veterinarian as an aspect to consider when we talk about access to care, especially in right now, the time of the pandemic and everyone being booked out so far. It seems that this is maybe more pertinent now than ever. And I'm so sorry, I don't know any other specific points that she wanted, but I know that in her mind, this fell under the sort of purview of this discussion since we are talking about access to care. We definitely have clients that are trying to get in for things like ear cleanings, nail trims, things that are really minor, but with vet hospitals booked out, some of them weeks in advance, it's been tough to accommodate everyone.
Any further
All right,
public
and
comment?
we have a request from Grant Miller to make comments. So Grant, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, Grant, you're unmuted.
For your report on your Access to Care Task Force meeting, and Dr. Solicito for your comments as well. The CVMA is convening our Access to Care Task Force this coming week, next week, and Dr. Nolan will be present at that task force. We're very much looking forward to working on this topic. I do feel that there is room for the Veterinary Medical Board to address some issues in relation to access to care. I think Dr. Nolan has already identified some of those issues, and Dr. Solicito certainly has a tremendous amount of experience in that regard. I would like to point out that in Dr. Nunez's kind of roadmap of access to care and in listening to the comments of people here today, I do believe that there is a little bit of a misinterpretation as to what the access to care issue is. A lot of people are tying access to care into the number of veterinarians that are in this state or lack thereof. And actually, access to care while it has something to do with that, it has very little to do with that in the grand scheme of the overall topic. You can put a veterinarian on every corner in every city in the state of California, but 25% of our pet owning population cannot afford to walk into that veterinarian's office. Within that 25% of people that cannot afford to do it, 80% of those cite monetary reasons as their number one constraint. And then smaller proportions cite transportation issues and language and cultural barriers. So I would like to make sure that the board is clear going forward that, yes, while we can add some veterinarians by reducing limits to licensure and helping with our board exam and helping with the VMLRP program, that's actually not going to do a whole lot of good if the people who need veterinarians can't afford to walk into a vet practice. I also would like to point out that the American Physical Therapy Association's national strategic plan to expand animals into their scope of practice has nothing to do with access to care. It has to do with them wanting to work on animals. So this is not an issue of people out there in the street not being able to find rehabilitation services for their animals. This is an issue of people not having enough money to do the basic care services that they need, such as vaccinations and basic health care. This isn't about people not being able to find rehabilitative services, not being able to find veterinary services. They know where they're at. They just can't afford to pay for them. So I'd like to make sure that we separate out those
30
issues.
seconds.
Access to care has nothing to do with physical therapists wanting to work on animals. Thanks very much.
All right, and that's the end of requests for public comment. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Before I address Dr. Nolan or acknowledge Dr. Nolan, Dr. Miller did bring up a good point. The original meeting where this task force was proposed, it was Alana Inez that proposed it, and her reason for the task force definitely was more economic than distance or access to specialty care. So if the task force is asking for direction from the board, does the board feel like we should limit the task force's charge into more of the economic issues rather than the distance and specialty type aspects of it? Or is it too complicated to separate like that? Could we, what do you think of us giving you that direction, Dr. Nolan?
Again, I'm biased, so I'm going to probably have more involvement, and I hear more stories about access to care related to rural communities. But don't misunderstand the species orientation. Rural communities don't have veterinarians to treat their pets, their dogs, their cats either. So, you know, that's still an issue. But Grant, I want to speak to Grant. Thank you very much. Grant was actually citing some statistics from the access to care report that we discussed briefly during the task force, and the 80%, the people that were polled in several of the polls in that report, 80% indicated that their access to care issue was monetary. My point with that, Grant, and I read a lot of those statistics, they also admitted bias in some of those reports. So whereas I think we're probably going to find the same is true in California, I would like to know for sure. Maybe it's 90% in California. We'll cite the reason is due to monetary issues. Maybe it will be less. The report that the polls that they did were mostly in urban areas, which is, you know, also another reason why I brought up the rural community part, because it really wasn't covered in those reports very well. But also, I think that I would like to see us really collect some of the same data that those poll reports did in California. I did not bring up the another program that we spent some time on. It's called Tufts at Tech, Tufts University being a vet school, Tech being a high school that is actually a technical high school. But I think that's a very compelling idea. We are going to have Dr. Wolfus, who's the director of Tufts at Tech, talk. We were going to have him, and then we ran out of, he couldn't make it. But that's an actual model where the technical high school has upward level veterinary students come in and do basic wellness and basic treatments under the supervision of their clinicians at low or no cost, based on, again, social services in that community indicating a need. And it appears to be wildly successful. I think Western University has actually to use that model somewhat in their clinic. And that might be, I think that's something we should actually talk about. I just am uncomfortable using one report, to really believe that the numbers are what's happening in California. But I do agree with Dr. Miller completely that monetary reasons are by far, the most obvious, at least in multiple reports that I was able to research. And access to care for physical rehabilitation is probably not due to monetary, means. I don't know. Did I answer your question, Dr.?
Who's speaking?
It's me. Did I answer your question, fearless leader?
Well, I know that you're asking for direction, and so what I would propose, and I also heard your request to move it on to the MDC because of I know that our two co-chairs of this task force are very talented, but also are very strapped on time. I guess what I would like is just a clear definition of what we're defining as access, be it monetary or distance or other. And maybe we need current statistics. The report that you cited isn't quite specific to California. And all this that I'm asking for maybe can be better accomplished by the MDC than a task force. And then also a clear definition of what our jurisdictional authority is to contribute to this issue. And I listed licensing, minimum standards for practice types, and expansion of roles within the veterinary team. I think that that's what we are limited to. And so if we can get clear information on the definition and clear definition on what we have the authority to do, that's the direction that I would propose.
Can I say something, Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it possible for the task force to tap into the resource of the cow animals group to do a survey of their membership, because it's quite extensive. Their membership is quite extensive, and these are the agencies that are actually either right at the front line of the problems of access to care, and maybe getting more information from them from actual California data rather than the out-of-state one. So I'm thinking that's a resource that maybe the task force can utilize.
Yeah, and I don't, Jennifer? Jennifer, the radio's up and then down.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I forgot to unmute myself. I had initially had a question, but Dr. Nolan answered it. This whole time I've been thinking, what authority does the board have? Because we license, we do licensing and enforcement, but Dr. Nolan kind of answered that with maybe an expansion of a different type of license for treatment. Dr. Nunez, when you mention expanding roles within the veterinary team, I hear extended duties for RVTs. So my initial thought is to agree with Dr. Solicito. I think we need some more information. I'm always wary of any kind of survey from an association or an organization because there's a huge population that may not be in that organization or association. So I would love to see some more data before we take any major steps forward.
Okay, so I don't think we're going to solve any issues right now, but hopefully, Dr. Nolan, you've gotten some clear definition of what our expectations are, and you got it? You on top of it?
So I think I do, and I think what I'm hearing is that maybe the task force can press on gathering more general information, but then coming up next meeting with some specific information that we would like the MDC to gather. I agree 100% with Dr. Solicito that we had people come to the task force, but there are more people out there. And that's exactly the kind of information I think we can gather as far as statistics pertinent or directly associated with California that might even help if we're going to try in the future, I mean, we being a very general we, to try to get legislation in California, because legislatures really like data that's specific to their state. So I think there's some long-term implications of having, hopefully, some reliable data for this from the state without having to recreate the wheel, hopefully. And I have to be honest about this. I'm just kind of tiptoeing along, struggling to kind of get my hands around this, because I agree again with Dr. Solicito about definitions of access to care, and I know that Grant did a very good job, Dr. Miller, of talking about 25% of the people couldn't afford to walk into a veterinary clinic. But actually, as you delve into some of these reports, you realize there's some educational lapses here too. A lot of the younger pet owners, when they're answering the surveys, the young pet owners didn't even know their animal needed to be vaccinated. They didn't even understand the basics of wellness. So, there's a lot here, in my opinion. Anyway, I think I can move forward. What do you think, Diane?
Yeah, I think this was great. I think we can definitely move forward. And I think that, while this is big to tackle and it raises more questions, it also just gives credence to why it's important to continue to have this access to care task force, because there's things that do need to be fleshed out and there's research and data that does need to be collected. And while I agree with Dr. Nolan that both of us aren't going to be the ones that are going to be researching this, at least gathering what it is that we need and being able to delegate, right, is part of good leadership. So I thank you for everyone's comments, and I think that this is good for us to be able to proceed forward.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Thank you, Dr. Nolan. Keep up the good work. We have the representative from DCA coming to us at 1:30. Is that correct, Jessica?
She is actually available now, but I also told her that we would likely break for lunch after this. So I think it's just the preference of the board.
Okay.
If you would like to break for lunch or have her do it now.
Yeah, I propose we take 45 minutes for lunch. And I hope the student representatives are really soaking this all in and still with us. And so let's reconvene at 1:30 then. Okay? See you then.